In the bottom left, to start off the first preliminary match of the GSL Round of 8 Group B, it is Solar. And in the top right, we do have the Blue Terran Bunny. The other members of this group include, I literally just said it, hold on here, it's on the title, include Dark and Byun. So Bunny, Solar, Dark, Byun, sounds like an excellent group to me. Group A actually was not all that evenly matched, I would say. Maru dominates in TVT, Kier dominates in TVP and is really good at TVT, and then poor Gumiho, is just not as good as those names I just listed, and then Classic is a poor Protoss facing nothing but Terrans in a meta right now where Protoss are absolutely struggling. So, there was a couple of good games, if you guys didn't watch that, but maybe not overall quite worth it. I think with these four guys, I think it's just like a much better group. I honestly do. Feels like this side of the bracket is really competitive. Any of these guys could make it out in the top 2 to move on to the round of 4. I do think that perhaps Bunny might be a little bit of an underdog. Again, I'm not like totally convinced that he's A-okay after his, to him, disappointing performance at Atlanta. He didn't end up winning it, right? And then Katowice wasn't really good for him, and it's been kind of like, but I think he did top his group for the round of 16, right? So he's definitely not playing poorly. But I'm like a little more concerned about Bunny than any about the other guys, mentally, I suppose, emotionally, something like that. I know Solar has also had his own trouble with, I guess, uneven results. There we go, uneven results, but I think he is pretty freaking good. I am curious if this is going to end up being a ZVZ in the winners or losers match, actually. Dark versus Solar could be very interesting. Anywho, we do have Bunny with an SEV scout. I mean, it's a best of 3. It's Solar. Maybe not the most likely thing, but he did want to make sure he could get his command center down all nice and snappy. And then so far, still no second gas geyser, so they are going to have a third CC right there. Right there. And Solar is going for his third hatch. So, I mean, Solar usually gets the scouting that he needs, but I would say overall, as far as the insanely thorough scouting, I don't put Solar at the absolute best. But his Overlord is actually sneaking by to be perfectly positioned to sneak in to see something. So, this case, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge issue. It is going to be one of the greediest 3 CCs that a Terran can do right into the second barracks. So that's going to, I mean, hopefully for Bunny, give him that advantage if Solar was unable to scout this very quickly. Perhaps Solar would be very apprehensive against like a Hellbet attack or Banshees, build unnecessary Spore Crawlers, that type of thing. But as I was saying, Solar should be able to get a scout here. Just by the timing of the second barracks, you'd be able to figure out what it is. The Marines are moving into place. I mean, it was a Reaper opener. You see 2 Marines afterwards. That's a little weird, right? Maybe a Marine afterwards, gas second, Reaper, and then Marine, then Reactor. But actually, this combination of units might already be pointing towards, well, certainly a non-Hellion opener. But I guess you do have to be careful. The likes of, for instance, Byun, who's in this group, does sometimes go for, like, reactored Marines and a medevac and then into Hellions. So I guess it's still not the end-all be-all of the scouts, but it's actually a decent one, weirdly enough. It's limited as it is. And then you really would want to find out the exact timing of the factory, thus the exact timing of the starport. Because you might be able to figure out, okay, it's 3cc, it's a bunch of Marines, but the real concern for the Zerg player would be when are they going to be attacked. So if it's a 4 racks, which would be very interesting if they're 3cc, maybe they have to already be careful about building links, getting ready for the Marines. If it's going to be going up to medevacs, well, then you basically just say, I can wait until those medevacs are out. But again, Solar, it's difficult to get that exact scout. And he's just working off the information that he has, that it is a more Marine-based opener. The 3rd CC must have been the main base. Supply depots are covering the wall now. And Greed would be good up until a certain point. So Solar should just be pumping away on the drones. Does build an additional 10 lings, actually. It's actually going up to 20 lings. So, unfortunately, the attack's really not on the way. So, I mean, in a perfect world, you wouldn't build those. You'd build maybe more drones, but it's really quite concerning when you don't know exactly when the push out could happen, because if it is a 4-ax and they're just sending Marines across the map, you know, the attack might already be happening. If they're waiting for medevacs, they're waiting for medevacs. Bunny, not going to wait for medevacs. As a large number of Marines with stamina, eventually combat shields, finds Lings trying to escape as well. This is actually quite nice for Bunny. And is going to start pressuring, basically under the assumption that he won't be surrounded and killed. There's no immediate escape when a Terran does something like this. Whatever their build does to put those Marines out in the map without medevacs, there is no, like, easy escape. So if the Zerg player does build enough Lings, chases after you and gets that surround, and the Banelings connect, the Terran player could be in some trouble. But presumably, as you scan ahead and see no Banelings formed, you can kind of judge whether or not you can dive on the Zerg player, which Bunny kind of has right now, or if you should just go ahead and stay on the edge of that creep. Right now, Bunny playing a very dangerous game, is going to try and snipe these Banelings, but, I mean, even the second one that was sniped still caught the tail end, the outside of the Marines. The third one definitely made a direct connection. So Bunny's little attack right there, not actually, I think, doing all of that much that he wanted, I suppose. 3 Queen, 34 Lings, a handful of Banelings that died as well. I guess technically all of them were focus fired because they're on the units lost tab. But it is always hard to tell because the Zerg player has to respect it. They're not necessarily being the greediest they could ever be. So we're at an even-ish worker count, and Bunny is going into a 4th CC. So in that department, in terms of making Solar respect his potential Marine move out, that did kind of work. The actual Marine attack didn't maybe get as much as one would hope. Maybe 5 Queens instead of the 3. Or maybe finding someone who just doesn't have Banelings on the way at all, so would have been quite dangerous. But it is what it is, and now we go into, I guess, the mid and thus macro game of TVZ. Bunny with that 4th CC kind of setting the pace. That was around 6:30. Maybe even a little bit earlier than that for that command center. So Solar is going to move on to his 5th base, get a macro hatchery in the main, and still has to respect the drop potential, because you know the medevacs must be out by now, but really does need to also get settled on his own economy, his own upgrades, and his own technology. His upgrades are a decent bit later than Bunny's. I mean, Bunny was really just doing the most greedy build ever, and has gotten away with it, where Solar had to respect the idea of any type of impromptu move out. Now dealing with a little bit of a tank pressure. As you know, I'm not really a big fan of drops into the main of Zerg players because it just puts you on a creep, but probably just willing to evacuate immediately. Solar not anticipating this. Does have some army now responding, but also pulled back the rest of his Lings that were going to go for a little bit of a counterattack or cut off reinforcements. They were pulled entirely back home. That 5th hatchery cancel also already impacting Solar's kind of subpar economy when you compare it to how much Bunny has gotten. His 4th CC floating on over. Solar's 5th having to be replaced. Now it looks to be in a secure location, but we'll see as the game goes on. Solar finally gets his Ling run by in. He was trying to do this just a minute ago, but it's not going to be the most effective. Grabbing a couple of SCVs on the move out, but for the most part, the reinforcements and the natural should take care of this, although these couple of Lings being a little bit more bothersome than they should be. The supply depot stopping Marines from helping this out. All right, 5 SCVs, not that big of a deal. Bunny does consolidate his army, brought everything back, and is ready to defend his 4 bases. Is he going to go super turtle mode, or is he actually going to try and push out again, is now the question for Solar. Sometimes Terrans absolutely will just, say, like, I'm done ever trying to push out. I'm only going to do drops. Cure, I think, is more like that guy. And then some other Terrans are going to say, I'm going to continue being, a pressure Terran as much as freaking possible, and that would be more like Byun, perhaps. And we do have Bunny moving out with a considerable number of Marines and medevacs, so he's certainly not just sending out 2 medevacs just for a drop, but this is definitely not a main army. There's no tanks, no Widow Mines. Okay, 1 Widow Mine. So it is eventually going to have to be picked up. And for the most part, Bunny is just building up that tank count, building into the Marauders, finishing up those 2-2 upgrades, which are still going to be 20 seconds faster than the Zergs. As Solar has made himself some nice room now that his 5th base is up and running. Creep spread just barely covering all of his bases. He will now find the resources to go into that hive technology. I'm thinking primarily about Vipers if this tank count continues to grow. 2 factories pumping away. Only at 5 tanks currently is not the most impressive number. Bunny not able to literally afford everything, and the kitchen sink does have to skip a couple of rounds of tanks, like this right here, for instance. There's not another tank on the way. Although this has more to do with him already being maxed out than it has to do with his resources. So he is maxed out on quite a few bio units, as 9 Marauders leading the charge, and they're actually looking to gun down that hatchery. That is a very large Zerg army that is at least ready to defend the high ground for now. I was going to say, overall, this might not be an actual position that Solar can defend. He pulls away the drones, does take care of the small army that met... But actually, what was the tank there? It went forward with the tank. That was probably not on purpose. And here comes the rest of Bunny's army. He is definitely going to grab that hatchery. Little bold with his Marines. The creep spread is being cleared, but we know that it takes some time to actually clear. Bunny even wondering if there was another creep tumor. I don't blame him. It seems like it's taking forever. Bunny's 4th base now planetary, 5th base on the way on location. He believes that his aggression in the mid part of Royal Blood is good enough that Solar will not have either the presence of mind or of the units to actually send a run by at least over to the right direction. Perhaps Solar would still be trying to gun down the natural, which is wide open. But Solar is under a decent amount of pressure. That 5th base going down, he definitely needs one, right? He needs a 5th base. He also needs the macro, I would say, on the Remax. Both of them currently maxed, so that's not an issue right here, right now, but if there is a big engagement, it absolutely will be. Bunny not actually getting away with the on-location 5th Command Center. Solar thankfully did send something over there. At least the Command Center was canceled, but the other would-be 5th might just finish up. Bunny still continuing with the aggression. Solar playing a little bit of that migrant Zerg. He's going to run his drones back over to the right side after going to the left. SCVs were pulled for Bunny as well by the looks of things to mitigate the damage taken. And oh boy, we got ourselves a real macro game, don't we? And actually one that is continuing to be full of excitement. 5th base does go down for Solar, so this is his new 5th base, his new one. The 3rd orbital is lifted. Didn't lose many SCVs, but a lot of lost mining. Remember, Bunny did not get a 5th base up, so he's really only mining off of like 2.5 bases. Here's the break for Solar. He's finally got those Vipers, a couple of good blinding clouds on top of most of the tanks. These two still firing away, but not necessarily focus firing. Blinding cloud actually dissipates off of 2 very well-positioned tanks. Those are the most brutal tanks, actually, to not die while blinding clouded. And this is still a wonderful position for Bunny, who does have a slight army supply lead. Solar is trying to remax, but he cannot spend all of his money. That's the problem that I was talking about. The larva not available to use up all of his bank might be why Bunny has the momentum right now. Oh, but you know what would use your bank? Lurkers. Absolutely. Lurkers would use your bank. But this is the type of game where a Terran player actually has such control over the game, having denied the 5th repeatedly in a very, very macro-oriented game, and even getting the 4th base, that the Lurkers aren't as much of a stopping point and a leg up as you would hope. Usually, if the Terran player is unsuccessful in bothering the Zerg and Lurkers pop up, I mean, you're on Ghost or you're dead. But if the Terran player is really doing a lot of damage and really still threatening attacks on, you know, locations outside the Lurkers' zone, then the Zerg player is still under a lot of trouble, especially until their Lurkers have all of their upgrades. Lurkers actually do in this game. But still, to spread themselves around is, you know, it's a little bit dangerous. The tanks do take care of them to a certain degree, but Bunny certainly needs those ghosts. That's what's really going to deal with these Lurkers. They're not here yet. It's just the tanks and the bio, a decent amount of it, yes, but the Solar's Lurkers are upgraded. They are moving on in. He's going to go for the offense, kind of a best defense opportunity. However, the opportunity for Bunny to defend was there. Tanks on the left, tanks wonderfully positioned on the right, just kind of coincidental from him running away. And that meant that Solar couldn't get that big jump on like he was hoping. You know, if he jumped on Bunny not paying attention with all of his army in a big old ball, well, then those Lurkers are probably pretty effective. But Bunny has held, gotten his 3rd base up and running again, 5th base as well, though it has to be repaired, and his ghosts are finally out. So that will be a much better response to the Lurkers. And Solar is the one that is still, I would say, in a bit of a pickle. He finally has gotten up his 5 bases and is moving on to a 6th, but it's really not a secure location for a 14-minute ZVT, and the Zerg doesn't really have a lot of bank. I would not say that this is a necessarily comfortable Zerg, although it's certainly... he's got the tools to make something work. Bunny now also has the tools to defend it, so Ghosts being very good against those lurkers. Solar might be more inclined to go into the mass Link Baneling Hydra, which actually does quite well, but what does that need? It needs a huge bank, and that is something that Bunny has denied Solar over and over and over again, constantly denying bases that Solar really needs. I would say at no point did Bunny kill kind of like a, superfluous? Am I going to try it? No. Base that is unnecessary, right? Like your 8th base that the Zerg player just figured they could actually get, and that gets sniped, not that big of a deal. But these are all bases that Solar really needs, especially as he mines out of his mana and his natural. Superfluous. Superfluous. You don't say that quickly. Don't do that. That's dangerous. I advise commentators not to use that word. Anyways, Nidus Swarm is a great idea. Probably the best thing you can do with lurkers at this point too, which maybe doesn't get spoken of enough. I mean, for every game that we see a Nidus Swarm straight up win, we have probably a dozen plus games where the Nidus Worm is like the only thing a Zerg player can do with their lurkers. They just otherwise are kind of obsolete because the ghosts are out. And then they don't even do that much damage because the ghosts do respond to the Nidus Worm. They do respond to the lurkers, and it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I totally had that word. Thanks, chat. I nailed it. Now with Liberators and some SimCity, love the missile turrets, and they're also going to get their upgrade. High-sec auto-tracking to deal with those Vipers. Bunny is in a very secure 5-base setup. Solar seems to have finally been allowed a 6th base, and perhaps a 7th as well. Don't see any drops coming out for Bunny. What I do see is Solar attacking in 2 different directions, and a Nidus Worm in the main base. That tank from Bunny was once again very well positioned, and this case, actually, Solar a little late to reacting. Only got 1 lurker out, and they died to that tank again. Bunny's tank positionings have actually been amazing this game. 1 or 2 of them is just fortunate, but most of them, you know, he's doing it for a reason, right? Now, the Nidus Worm is going to be pretty much ineffective, I would say. Yes, the lurkers pop out, but Bunny, you know, he can actually deal with it. Or, well, hold on here. He's also engaging, or being engaged upon. Nope, that's actually okay. Yep, Planetary's going to finish SimCity's up. Some tanks are positioned, and now the Ghost and the Bio can go respond to the high ground problem. Bunny's main base is being ransacked. Going to lose the Armory that was working on +3 attack, as well as potentially the Ghost Academy. But here we go. Overseer is prepared, but, you know, you just have too many units, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. This wasn't the biggest deal ever, and even though it did move Bunny's army out of position, he had secured his other bases quite well. The Liberators, tanks, missile turrets, and just the SimCity of the bases, not even the Planetary being done, is all a lot for the Zerg to consider. You know, they have the ability to respond to each one of these things, but it requires a fair bit of time and micro. So, you know, hopefully, even if Bunny wasn't quite prepared to defend right there, he'd still take a chunk of Solar's army with him. But in that case, Solar kind of realized, like, it's not really going to be worth it. The army's coming close. I'm not going to push it. And now we got nukes in play. Hello? Ghost Academy got repaired up. Nuke finished up. And then the 5th base is going to die. That is like the 10th, 5th base, I swear, that's died. Nidus Worm came down actually behind the army, weirdly enough. Drone trying to save themselves. It looks like Bunny did not notice that they burrowed, or doesn't have a scan, either one. Maybe saw the encroaching army with the Sensor Tower off to the right side and said, you know what, I'll wait a whole second and then go back on top of the drones, and that's exactly what he does. Gold base is going to be temporarily denied. I mean, it's kind of cute, but Bunny's intention is absolutely to cut this map in half, probably take this space, and then work his way towards this one. Probably not capable of getting this one as well. You know, we will have a bit of a split map scenario, but we know that doesn't really favor Zerg players so much, as they are the ones who need more resources lost to win the game. Let's go ahead and check that tab as well. Bunny winning by a pretty nice amount in the resources lost. 11,000 advantage. That change in right here, right now. Tanks and missile turrets aplenty were available, but the blinding clouds did still come down, so the tanks were taken care of, and it looks like the rest of Bunny's army was not around to help, so a little less of a punish there than Bunny would have hoped for. But the missile turrets did its job, like kind of again going back to what I was talking about on this high ground. It's not necessarily that Bunny thinks he will be locked up tight whenever he lets his tanks and missile turrets be alone. It's that he knows he'll take a chunk of the army down with him at least. But hopefully he is also there to respond, right? So he did at least kill, I believe, all of the Vipers that engaged there. Only 3 Vipers overall have been killed, so not the biggest number, but that is still all the Vipers. No, literally 1 is available. Solar may be bridging that resources gap. No, it's actually increasing in favor of Bunny, who is so boldly trying to take the right side and the left side. I mean, this is just basically impossible. You can't really take both locations unless the game is, I think, already really going heavily in your favor. And while it has been going well for Bunny, it is starting to favor Solar a little bit. He's finding more holes in Bunny's Bunny's armor, and is actually doing some okay damage, I suppose. Still nothing truly game-breaking, but it does look better than it did 7 minutes ago, where Bunny was just kind of all over the place. Solar finally getting more than 5 bases up, right? So as he lost his would-be 5th or 6th, whatever it is, he got this base, he got that base, he got that base, and he does want to get this base too, and I would say that's kind of Solar's to take. If I may be so bold, I would say like Solar kind of deserves this one, but obviously Bunny doesn't want to let him have it if he doesn't have to. As I said, Bunny would probably get these bases up, but anything more is kind of on Solar. You should not let that happen. And in fact, still denying the very top left base. A little bit of a crackling run by. We do have 3/3 upgrades for those Lings, +2 attack on the Hydras and Lurkers if they're still in play. Yeah, we had 2 Lurkers in play, so you know they're upgraded. Nice. And doing something. I think they're still the Nidus Worm. Oh, they popped out to harass the gold base. I do like it. These Liberators are an excellent response, but they're missing their range. Also not in position for the big main fight of the game. Bunny's supply dipping down pretty hard. His ghosts are being microed back, but we see a lack of tanks. The Lings and Banelings overwhelming, and Bunny's supply is looking a little concerning, but this time around, he will get that punish. Lots of snipes going down, a lot of expensive Hydras. Bunny losing 12 SCVs that are easily replaced as well, and then the ghosts, which are the most expensive thing to replace, remain at a steady 13, so not so bad right there. In fact, Bunny has only lost 3 ghosts. That's pretty good ghost retention, but he has also lost 19 tanks, for instance, so that's, you know, that's a bit painful, especially because the tanks don't produce necessarily all that quickly, but it looks like Bunny's just been building away on them. 3 factories still intact, 3 tanks at a time. Do we have Neural Parasite? We do not. This Infestor sharking around is looking more for a big old fungal than anything else. Triple checking that. Another nuke coming down. I think we all like the nukes. And this one, could it be actually effective? You don't have enough camera hotkey locations to actually check this one out. Oh, a little bit late to the pool, but it looks like it will be good enough. 6 drones go down, but not necessarily to the nuke. It's over here on this drop. In fact, a lot of drones going down. Solar not exactly rich, guys. You know, replacing 18 drones would take up more than his bank allows currently. And he is still the Zerg player in the situation after all, so he's gonna, you know, need more resources than Bunny as the game goes on. Resources different, still actually much in favor of Bunny. It's gotten better over time, but does Bunny have enough army in the right place to actually make that game-winning factor? I mean, it's great if you are doubling or halving the resources lost. You know what I mean. It's great if you're winning the resource loss game so much, but one bad fight and then the Zerg on top of your production reinforcements, and you can still be screwed. I believe the Viper did just get sniped right there, so no Vipers, only one Infestor. Bunny's army now consolidated and trying to push all together, which means that there's weaknesses elsewhere. Although I like this little setup right here. He just gave up on a 3rd base entirely. Bunny also not having a gold base or this top left base. He is running out of cash. Solar not in a much better position currently because of his low drone count. We check around some of these bases and probably a little bit of oversaturation. Just not enough minerals to mine from. The gold base actually already being depleted too. It's a little bit of an adrenaline rush. Doesn't stay around forever. And Solar, as I said, is he's a Zerg player. He's the one that has to worry about the long-term consequences of some of the poorer trades or the lack of, I guess, calm opener in which you do end up getting that bank of 4,000, right? We could see a lot more passive TVZs where the Zerg player eventually has some difficulty, but they had all this time to build up a bank. And we're like, well, you have allowances, basically. Solar has never really had all that much of an allowance in this game to really, truly screw up and recover. So I don't think he's ever really, truly screwed up, but he obviously isn't getting the big battles that are pushing him forward in this game, at least enough. For a little while there, I thought Bunny was the one losing out on the momentum, but he has now solidified his bases, solidified his like entrenched army, I suppose. I love the sensor tower in the middle, maybe a couple of missile turrets once again if you can find the pocket change. He's still doing some nuke run-bys as well, which are not super successful, actually. This one also didn't get a whole lot done, but you know, one day it might, and I guess that's what more so Bunny is looking for. A couple of infestors do come in. One was EMP'd. Viper also looking to add in something here, but this is actually a really big reach for Solar. This was a depth of Terran army that Solar's army was not actually ready to tackle at all. Solar's army supply now half of Bunny's as the ghosts once again remain intact, and Solar does not have the cash. There we finally have one of the bigger screw-ups from Solar, a truly terrible fight, and one that he cannot make up for because he never really got that much of a bank in this game. Even if he had a bank, it would still take a long time to totally remax. He'd already be losing some of his more important bases, the dominoes would be falling, and he'd still be in trouble. But he's got all the problems listed above and the fact that he can't remax. Bunny slowly getting better on that economy, finally getting this top left base up, still has a ton of orbitals to drop those mules, and his defenses are working where he needs them. And I guess this is a base you could take if this really goes into like a super base race, which would be quite funny, but you know, it's possible. Solar now mostly relying on this 3 o'clock base, which Bunny, you know, was scouting with a whole ass command center. You know what I would love? Command center here into a planetary. I think that would be fantastic. Not worth it at all, but I'd love it. And I think yeah, Bunny actually really wants to stop it. I mean, when you see this oversaturation, this is actually a great sign for Bunny. Oh, he doesn't see it. Just kidding. Buildings don't have that much scout, that much vision. But if he did see it, I'd be feeling a lot better about this game. Because right now, I think it would still be ambiguous to Bunny, right? How many times do you think you've beaten the Zerg player back economically only to watch the replay and they have a huge bank? And you're like, oh, never mind. That EMP kind of, oh, well, just it only depleted some energy. So one Blinding Cloud on one tank does not make a great battle, especially as Bunny still had this amazing depth. A lot of it off creep as well. One tank was on siege, but for the most part, Bunny was ready to tango. Bunny was ready to go. 22 drones go down because he did lift up and hit that right side base, and there you have it. Bunny, 26.5 minutes in, takes a really sick macro game against Solar, kind of pushing away my doubts at the very least, because even after he did well in his first GSL group, I was still kind of like, oh, well, you know, maybe a softball group. You know, defeating Solar, who was also playing very, very well, is just a great sign for Bunny's chances in this group. But it is only game number 1. In the top left of Gresfon, it is Bunny. In the bottom right, we have Solar. Both these players really giving it their all for a pretty action-packed TVZ. Even though it got really close at times for both players, I would say that Solar was more so, if we got a pie chart out and it was like, you know, how much were each of these players having difficulty. I feel like Solar had more difficulty throughout the game. Like 65% of the game was Solar being a bit more troublesome of a spot. Not drastically, but just not comfortable for a Zerg player. I mean, as we look on the Terran side of things for a game like that, I don't think they ever feel comfortable either, to be clear. It's just having witnessed many of those types of TVZs. If a Zerg player doesn't have a kind of consistent 1500 bank or, you know, more, they're looking for better resource trades, which kind of just by nature they don't do so well on, and they're often their cost efficient army would be something like lurkers and spellcasters gets pretty countered by ghosts. So we do often see them go into Ling Baneling Hydra spellcaster once ghosts come out and actually get above the count of 8 or 9. Which is totally fine, and we see a lot of Zerg players win with that transition back over into the more suicidal armies, but they do need to be taking a lot of the map very quickly to do that, and Solar just wasn't allowed to. Bunny actually really didn't let his foot off the pedal, even though he did go for a very macro-based opener. He had the marine pressure that Solar had to respect, and thankfully he did, so he didn't just die right then and there. And then even as he grabbed the faster 4th base, he didn't ever really go and just be like, okay, I'm turtle, turtle, turtle. He did not do a whole lot, but he maxed out so quickly that when he was pushing, it was still like, in the overall game sense, it was still pretty quick and snappy. It was still not a lot of time given to Solar to build up that nice Zerg position. And as we move on to Gresfon, I mean, I do think that I might as well just talk a lot about the macro game that was game number 1, because we'll probably get another one on Gresfon. The last map I do like a lot more for Terran's tank positions, and Bunny's tanks are really nicely placed. I think Gressfawn might be slightly worse for them, but it's not like it's terrible. Gressfawn has also proven to be a very nice map for especially this matchup, but for both sides you can find favorable positions. We all know that Zergs hate this position, for instance, so Terrans abuse it. And then, I guess as the game gets really, really long, then suddenly the size of the map plays favoritism towards the Zerg, you know, so on and so forth. But yeah, it's usually our macro map. And besides this particular spot for Zergs, so this is like the 2 or 3 base push spot, afterwards, after that 3rd base, going into the 4th and the 5th, we don't see this as abused, you know? So if we really get a long macro game, which this map usually encourages, I expect Solar to have a bit more of a solid base to go into that late game with. We'll probably get a couple more bases up securely. Again, once we're past the 3 base for the Terran. Bunny's not going for a 3cc build, though. So it's already different. It just doesn't mean we're gonna, you know, guaranteed have a 2 base all-in or something like that. In fact, no one really does that anymore. Oh, Viking coming out. So just gonna do a standard Viking Liberator opener into the 3rd CC. So one of the least committed, I guess, 2 base openers that you can do. Certainly not a Hellbat drop, and certainly not any Banshee play. Solar just macroing is kind of what we expect from Solar. I mean, he could throw in his own cheeses, of course, but the best of 3, I don't know. I mean, he's always a macro guy. So Hellions have been seen. Solar knows that the build is already very different than the previous game. Command Center first, always kind of annoying to find out. You're just like, ah. But then otherwise, you don't know what's going on, and how about that? I say that no one really does 2 base attacks anymore, and what does Bunny do? He does a 2 base attack. Of course he does. Of course you do. No 3rd CC. Just 2 more barracks on the way. Overlord just got destroyed, but Solar could easily see, I think, some sus activity if he did hit the natural. See, the timing of the supply depot is still really important as 4 drones go down in a little bit of a Hellion run by. So with the 3rd CC, after a, how should I explain this, I guess? His Hellions continue to find a couple of drones, finally getting surrounded. With a 3rd CC, no second gas opener, the supply depots don't come down very fast at all. With a 2 base 111 opener, the supply depots come down, and then after 2 supply depots, you get a 3rd CC. That's almost like all builds. So already I think the front was a little bit sus, but then the Ling actually got up into that ramp and saw the additional barracks building, which is just really quickly timed. And the factory is already onto its tech lab building a tank. I mean, I think Solder can piece things together. And I honestly think he already kind of was, again, by the supply depot activity. I think that's why he added on a Roach Warren. Roach is actually really good against a 2 base attack from a Terran player, provided that, you know, you actually get enough roaches. I mean, that could still be a problem. And it is definitely a 2 base attack from Bunny. He's not going to, or try his hardest not to play a very long game on Gressfawn. Maybe even a little exhausted after the first game. Who could blame him? And single engineering bay also being a significant sign of that 2 base attack. But yeah, Solar knows what's up. Solar going at +1 Carapace. He won't have that immediately. Absolutely not. But this is not an engagement that will necessarily decide the game right here, right now. What's more important is that Solar stopped droning and is actually building up the Roach Ravager counts. It's still a little concerning, the timing of it, but I think he's all right. Bunny not going to just blitz forward carelessly in case, well, Solar was prepared. Slow siege up of the tanks, clean up the creep spread. That's Solar's time to get those Ravagers, and even the Queens helping out against this, actually quite a bit. They tank shots nicely, and all those transfuses help and everything, right? It's always good to have. We did have a Ling run by that was cleaned up, did not end up getting one of those tanks, which was clearly the target there from Solar, but it's not the worst thing, as his Roach Ravager composition and his Queens. Queen Roach Ravager is great at time buying. It's just a very sturdy composition, and of course, Corrosive Biles will cause a little bit of doubts to the Terran's movements. So they don't want to run into them after all. So another Ling run by that once again is not super successful, but isn't necessarily taking away from Solar's defense. Lings right here, right now, probably wouldn't be all that helpful anyways. I will say, though, that if he could get 20 Lings to actually wrap around and help with the tanks, that would probably be the best use of Lings. Solar attacking from one direction will always be a little bit worse off because of it. But I do think he's doing a great job holding on. I think he did just exactly what he needs to do. I think he figured out fast enough what Bunny was doing and then built a composition that was nice against it. And then, you know, you do just buy time. And so that +1 Carapace is going to finish about 25 seconds. Solar actually not going to wait for it. It's 15 seconds away. He's still not going to wait for it. Ravager's awkwardly coming forward because they're trying to kill those tanks. The Ravager's actually taking quite a beating, but the Roaches and the Queens and the reinforcements will be barely enough to take down the bio. And without the bio, the tanks cannot stand on their own. So that was, yeah, good enough. It was a bit of an anti-timing, for sure. Thank you, Dusty Dowdy, for the 4 months. Not waiting for that Carapace, but I think kind of getting pushed into it because Bunny was suddenly being so aggressive. And then trying to reach back to kill those tanks. Yeah, the Ravagers are usually so important to keep alive, but on the other hand, it might be a fair trade if you really, truly do push back the entire Terran army, which is exactly what happened. Bunny was forced to entirely retreat. Now he's moving on to a little bit of drops, but his intention is still to 2-base all in, as you can see, no third CC. He's adding on some Liberators, which can sometimes be problematic, but his drops do need to add some damage in, make sure that Solar doesn't completely recover from the early game shenanigans. And so far, Solar's doing fine defending. He's going to try and maybe get up to a Hive. I'd have to stop that Queen if he wanted to actually do that, because a Viper would be catastrophic to Bunny. You know, he's not really building a whole lot of tanks or a whole lot of Liberators, right? So one Viper getting a good Blinding Cloud or a couple of Abducts, big difference maker, big difference maker. But Solar's actually going to try and get into Lurkers. I mean, either one is a bit of a stretch, right? I'm not sure Solar will have the time to get there, but if he does squeeze it in, it'll be very good against what Bunny has. Bunny's drops, like I said, not doing a whole lot. His main army still somewhat decent. I mean, the army supplies are still very similar. He's able to add in a handful of Marauders to help out against what is clearly a more Roach-based composition. And the tank counts at 5, you know, something to sneeze at. But if Solar can max out and fit in Lurkers and Vipers, I mean, Bunny's just pretty screwed. And it is a tough game for the Zergs to play, right? They could easily over-defend or under-defend. I mean, that's just, you know, you can screw up against this pretty easily and give a Terran an opportunity to come back. Now, that is a decent amount of Roach Ravager. And the Ravager's also, of course, helpful against those Liberators, so you're not purely depending on those Vipers. But the Vipers are not going to be here for some time. The Queen count has been reduced down to 4 since they're on the front line so often. Many of them did sacrifice themselves, and the rest are just busy trying to inject, which is actually not as big of a problem for a Roach-based style of play. Having enough larvae, but you can see, is still somewhat of a problem. That's not exactly a lot of larvae to work with. At this point in time, Solar could go ahead and abandon ship on his 3rd base and still be all right, because he knows that Bunny is still 2-base committed, and while Solar might not have the best Zerg economy ever, what he will have is an almost maxed out army with some nice spellcasters, and that will be better than what Bunny has if Solar waits for it. Again, a little bit of haphazardness going on, just trying to take out some of these siege units. So he did take down a Liberator, he did push away some of the bio, but he also lost a handful of those Ravagers. The Fungal didn't exactly hit either. Little Roach run-by does get cleared up. Pause some of the reinforcements. Bunny does seem to be running out of steam. Even though Solar has traded out some of his Ravagers, that's fair to say, he still had the ability to remake a lot of them. Infestor, once again, not quite getting the best Fungal, but it's going to be good enough. All of the Roach Ravager forced through that choke into tanks, into Liberators is, again, one of the worst situations for Solar. But he does have the army for it by the looks of it. And he doesn't have to worry about, I guess, only defending this base. He was able to back away and still be relatively fine on the economy. You can see that oversaturation. But 150 supply, many corrosive biles against Bunnies. Now 120-ish, and a very desperate-looking main orbital flying over, and Solar is still okay. He is, but it's, as I said, it can be really easy to over or under defend as a Zerg player. I love the fake triple drop. Solar took this very seriously, but it looks like his army split's good enough anyways. He's tracking both drops So even if one is fake, it's not necessarily all that much of a problem. And Solar now double expanding. 600 minerals that he couldn't necessarily just, you know, flippantly get. He's not that rich. But it does look like it's the right call, as Bunny is technically on 2 bases mining again. I mean, the main orbital lifting is just, it's still not the same, but it, you know, it's better than nothing. And Solar's gonna get both bases up. Viper charged up with energy, and a lurker den with, looks like 6 lurkers being the goal. 6 hydras on the way. And Bunny just won't have technology. I mean, Bunny can't even max out. He's not gonna get any additional upgrades. He's not gonna get a second factory. He's not gonna get to ghosts. He gets to ghosts, he's gonna afford like 2 ghosts. Like, oh no. At this point, Solar would really have to screw up. And he's gotten a little close to screwing up. Some of those engagements down this ramp were not pretty. But he hasn't truly messed up. He's forced to abandon his 3rd base once again, but it's not the worst deal at this point. Solar still has enough to max out. He still has this excellent technology, so giving up a base, and only a base, not the drones, just the base itself, is not that problematic. It's really just a bone thrown to Bunny, like, here, have something, because otherwise Bunny would have almost no hope in this game. He's going to try and take some abusive tank spots, but with the Viper available, 2 Vipers available now, it's not going to be as abusive as he would hope. This is actually just now very abductable. Lurkers should draw a line in the sand against what is pure bio, even without their upgrades. The hatchery is going to go down, as a drop in the main base also distracts, barely not able to get that 1 medevac with a parasitic bomb. So Solar does lose both of the bases. His investment now totally gone. But maxed out with technology is still the main problem. Bunny is 30 army supply lower than his opponent. This is his 3rd, not his 4th. And these SEVs look like they're Ganas. Big Ganas. Dropping the main. I'd love to kill these Vipers, but there's only 2 Marines. Ha! This time around, the parasitic bomb is going to kill those weakened medevacs and kill the last one as well, as the Lings continue to run around the bases, kill 12 SCVs, some reinforcements perhaps as well. Not really the best of Ling run-bys, they don't have very many upgrades, but it is a lot of distraction. It does cause some damage, and Solar extends his lead, even without his, well, now 4th base, obviously, being up and running. Finally, that does complete. Bunny on his last army. And it is nowhere near maxed out. Siege units can be difficult to deal with, but Vipers make your life so much easier. And having that 40 army supply allowance for the screw-up also makes your life very easy. Well, easier. What's it gonna be? Abducts first, and then soak up energy again, and then Blinding Clouds? Probably the best thing to do, if you've got the time. And Bunny can't just engage on this army. Lurkers are stopping him from pouncing on what is otherwise a maybe vulnerable composition. Ravagers and Hydras, not really all that tanky, but the Lurkers are protecting them quite well, and the Abducts keep going down. The Vipers go gain energy, and Solar also has a lot of his roaches, so that's all the tankiness that has now gone away from the front army. It's being used to run by, and they really aren't necessary with the Lurkers back at home. So Solar splitting up his army quite well. Now taking this just nice and slow. Nice and slow. So we got this army finally cleared out of the most annoying position. And Bunny, even with that annoying position, wasn't going to win anyways. Here comes the rest of the Zerg army, and it is finally going to be it. As the Ravagers once again on the front lines where they shouldn't be. Solar doesn't really care about his Ravagers, apparently. He's lost 22 of them this game. It doesn't matter, GG. Solar will hold on to the 2 base all-in and bring this to a game 3. In the top left, we do have Bunny. On the bottom right of Babylon, that is Solar. These games were played probably like what? Wait, hold on. Like 12 hours ago? 10 to 12 hours ago? Something like that? Pretty fresh. Pretty fresh. Top 2 move on to the round of 4 to join, oh boy, who was it? Cure and Maru, who I think were definitely favorites in their group. I think the group A was a lot less hard to call. Group B, fairly difficult. I don't know if Bunny wins this best of 3, or if Dark can push through. I would favor Dark, maybe above all in this group. Oh, Byun's also in there. No, I'd still favor Dark. I mean, he's such a tournament contender, but I just don't really know. I really don't know. It's a thing you're going to do regularly. Absolutely. I have been moving and dealing with some home family stuff, but very much my intention is to cast GSL replays as soon as possible on the day of the GSL, and then have them uploaded on my YouTube the next day. So you can catch the live stream, or you can wait for the YouTubes. The YouTubes. Admittedly, I just don't really religiously... I wasn't religiously watching GSL for the last 3 or 4 years, actually. As much as Tastosis could make most games entertaining, I mean... it just didn't hold the same appeal as, you know, certainly 10 years ago, where I was the biggest fangirl in the world. But I still very much love the Korean scene and would love to cast their premier tournament, where all the players are taking it the most seriously. Because all the players in Korea appear in the GSL. Some are still holding out on the whole Open Cup thing, from Maru, for instance. So, given the opportunity to cast GSL replays, that kind of is the marriage of it's a perfect marriage, you know. I get to actually cast GSL and get like intimate with it. I'm getting intimate with GSL to help me work, as well as just kind of fulfilling this not quite lifelong dream, but certainly this dream of casting GSL. It's not in the Afrika studios like I would have hoped, but that's okay. That's okay. I honestly feel like at some points in the 2013, 2014 years, I was already one of fewer and fewer people who were bothering to wake up for the GSL. I remember when it was MC versus Seed on the Busan Beach, was it? I forget what it's called. I remember like a lot of people saying they weren't going to bother because it was PvP. But it was like 6 a.m. Eastern. It wasn't that bad to wake up for, and I definitely did, and then no one else seemed to. And that was the last time I remember really being like hardcore about it, you know? There's one GSL that I actually got up for or stayed up for or whatever, but then I went to sleep halfway. And you guys know what GSL that was? MVP versus Squirtle. I saw Squirtle getting bopped and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to sleep, I'm tired. I messed up, guys. I had to watch the epic almost comeback on VOD. Anywho. Trip down memory lane, over. We do have Bunny once again going for a very, well, not as greedy 3rd CC, but definitely still a 3rd CC into a 2-1-1. I mean, the safe version of a 3 CC, besides scouting, is also get into Banshees. But the most unsafe you can do is probably what he did in the first game. Nothing but barracks, and the little bit middle of the road is including Hellions. But these are 4 Hellions, you know, it's not going to safeguard you against roaches, that's for sure. So they're mostly looking to scout, see any suspicious sign, you know, too few drones, too many lings. It's basically what they can scout. They don't usually dive, because if they dive to get either really good scouting or to try and kill drones, then you actually have nothing back at home. And Marines need a little bit of time to produce, to get to enough numbers to really be your defensive unit. You know, 4 Marines ain't nothing. Now, this also means, again, the difference between this one and the first build order from Bunny, this also means that his medevacs are going to be available a lot sooner, so it more naturally goes into a kind of 2-1-1 setup than his first game, where it was just the barracks push out. So it worked out in the context of keeping his Zerg suppressed, but he did lose all of his Marines, right? This is going to be a 2-1-1 hitting at 530. Ideally, you keep all 16 Marines alive, no matter what happens, because you got 2 medevacs to pick them up. And then you continue on from there, basically. You continue on from there, dropping and potentially following up with like a 2-tank push. Maybe getting into a fast 4th command center. Right now, I am looking at Bunny to lead the way, tell us what the pacing of this game is. As he grabs double engineering bays, that's fine. He does grab also his third barracks, of course, want to continue with that production. And then we're really waiting for a potential 6:30 or 7-minute fourth CC. As Solar is certainly looking to just be the defensive macro Zerg, and he usually is. A lot of queens available. They can't do it all by themselves. It only requires a handful of lings usually to help out. There's a little bit of spice to this with the 3 Hellions still helping, but there's the rest of the lings come in, and there you have it. There's the defense that Solar wanted to get. And I would call this a pretty decent defense. Solar gonna, well, almost immediately replant the creep. He actually used all of his energy on transfuses. There we go. And then actually go for a bit of a counterattack, trying to find those medevacs before they unload the Marines. And you can't unload Marines into these lings. You see Bunny tried, and it was a failure, but he does have reinforcements, taking the high ground, and manages to only lose 2 SCVs, so not a very potent counterattack at all there from Solar, who, didn't get much, but he did entirely push the Terran back. So a bit more breathing room for Solar. He's finishing up his 1-1 upgrades way far ahead of Bunny's. Baneling Nest only recently started. That's a little concerning. The Centrifugal Hooks upgrade will not be done particularly soon. I'm a little concerned by that. Bunny is not moving out with his tanks as of yet, though. This would just still be mostly a drop, right? So you don't necessarily need Banelings for this. But, Bunny does move out. Wow. Banelings aren't formed, but they're also not necessary with the amount of lings available and the fact that they're going to have those 1-1 upgrades. Ling Queen will still defend against the double drop. Double drop fake? I don't know if that was a fake or... Okay, well, this is a disaster now. All right, I was distracted. I don't know if that was a fake or not. That might have been real, but it got cleaned up. And the main base got cleaned up entirely. I can definitely tell you there was units there. Solar now in a wonderful position. Bunny has lost all of his momentum, if he ever had any to begin with. Now you really don't have any. And the supplies do absolutely tell the tale here. Bunny, not even with a particularly fast 4th command center. Faster than a lot of games, to be fair, but still, not that 630, 620, whatever it was. And Solar, having been on 4 bases, 70 plus drones, working his way up to 80 on a 5th base, and a macro hatchery, is in a pretty freaking wonderful position. Centrifugal hooks or not, which he still doesn't have. There we go. This is really unfortunate for Bunny. If only Bunny had focused on securing his units and then doing a tank push, let's say here, or maybe start there, I think Solar would have been in trouble. With these slow banelings trying to cross over, like, that's not going to be pretty, but Bunny wasn't planning on doing that. He just wanted to do more damage with his drops, trying to be the best mosquito ever, be really pesky and annoying. And he lost his units, which really takes the wind out of any potential main attack. So it's like Bunny's probably seeing these waddling banelings, like, son of a... And it's unfortunately for him going to have to be one of those late game TVZs in which the Zerg player does have all the time in the world to get their bases, get their drones, and build up that bank, something that was missing from the very first game. Plus, Bunny just had a more macro-oriented opener. This was still pretty macro-oriented, but I think the first one is maybe even a little bit more. Certainly with the 4th base command center it was. So Bunny just is playing a much worse game. Bunny's just in a much worse position. Is he going to die instantly? Maybe not. But it wouldn't surprise me if he did. Would not surprise me if Solar's first move out actually wins the game. Seconds before baneling speed, though, maybe wait for that. There we go. There it is. And there's the roly-poly-oly. 1 tank. Oh, it does get a beautiful shot. Planetary's canceled, as it should be. And whatever Marines are available are dragging the banelings through the tanks, but there's just so much more Zerg than there are Terran units. And this will still be an effective attack from Solar, even if it doesn't win the game. 7 SCVs, not really all that much killed. It's more about the tank count being killed. Bunny having to send every single harassing unit back home. And Solar having, again, all the time in the world to remax with all the resources in the world to do so as well. A little shy in that gas as he's adding on a lot of tech units, but he does remax pretty quickly nonetheless. Maybe a couple more banelings too. But you can see that Bunny just doesn't have enough units. Lings on the 3rd base, entirely undefended 3rd base. The tank number is only at 2, about to be 3. But a Viper also is about to be in play, so still not a great position for Bunny, who now has lost 24 SCVs. That looks like some serious damage. It's not that bad, actually, for Bunny's economy to lose that many. He's still at 66 workers and mules. What's bad is his lack of tech units. The tank count's not very impressive. The aggression has certainly stopped completely, and he is definitely not on his way to ghosts. So... as much as I want to give Bunny credit to recovering here, I think it would have to be Solar throwing more than Bunny recovering. And, you know, if Solar mistakenly rushes 40 Banelings into a single tank, I mean, or the rocks, right? That could still happen. Creep spread being pushed out past the center of the map is going to give Solar map hacks, or close enough to it. Again, he's still on those 5 bases. 87 drones at this point, working on a 6th. Sizing up his engagement. And even though all of this is going to be off of creep, he will be able to just throw bodies at his opponent. Eventually tear down enough of the army to win this game. Blinding Cloud plus some abducts take away the most siege units possible. But the planetary does remain alive, and that was a hefty chunk of change that Solar just threw in both directions, only to be unsuccessful in both directions. So hold on a second. Did Solar just make the worst mistake of his life? Is he actually going to lose this game? Bunny realizing that he still has a lot of army left over, not a lot of tanks, but still a lot of bio left over, is going to immediately counterattack into Solar's 6th base, get that kill no problem, and take advantage of the high ground here. Solar now in a decent bit of trouble, trying to remax, but has to get his Banelings formed, his Vipers back on the energy. He's going to lose this base as well as his 6th, and his counterattack is not going to be good enough, unfortunately. Just enough reinforcements for Bunny coming out to safeguard his 3rd base, and Bunny might end up doing it. I mean, I guess I called it right. Solar would have to throw more so, and that was a scenario that most Zerg players would pull the trigger as well. Honestly, I will have to look at exactly why that went so terribly wrong for Solar. But it definitely did. It was that type of wrong move from a Zerg player that immediately lets the Terran counterattack into their line of reinforcements. Banelings roll on through, try to connect with all the bio, but still so much of it left over. And a tank as well, a very injured one, but still. All you need, right? All you need as a Terran player is just a handful of those bio units left over, and if the Zerg player runs out of Banelings, they run out of chances. It's really what happens. 7 Marines will kill a buttload of Lings under Medivacs. That's what Banelings are necessary. And now the Banelings are going to be rolling into 2 tanks at this point in time. Both injured. 3 tanks, actually. One was hidden beneath the Medivacs. A Liberator and a couple of Marauders holding on for the Marines, soaking up that damage. Poor Solar. He was actually in a wonderful position, and he threw it all away in the blink of an eye. Bunny is going to win game number 3, despite a really abysmal start to this. Oh, what a painful loss for Solar. Ay, ay, ay. I gotta look back at what happened. How did that go so wrong? It was around here. Okay. So again, Solar is in that beautiful Zerg position where they clearly have momentum. The creep spread's gonna secure them for a tiny counterattack at the very least. They are building a bank. Not gas, to be fair, but they're building a bank. A lot of Zerg players would pull the trigger here. But let's see. Let's see this in slow motion. Ling Baneling, couple of Hydras, Ling Baneling. Okay, so the Vipers aren't really in play. There they are. This is a pretty good position. The tanks are creating a bit of a choke. These Lings... Oh my god, this is like the world's best tower defense. The Lings get aggroed on top of the tank, and it causes them to move around with the bios behind a supply depot. And the SCVs aren't being targeted because this is doing its job. Here we have... Banelings... crashing mostly into tanks and a sensor tower. Marines safely behind. They try and go after the Marines, but... leaving only Lings without their crackling upgrades to try and kill a planetary. I mean, that could not have been more perfect. For the limited resources that Bunny had, too. I mean, that's not necessarily a lot of static defense. It was just such good position on what he did have. Hell, I would even say if only Solar had just literally moved in through the middle with all of his army, he probably would have won. Yeah, that's so... Well, I'd almost say unlucky. Yeah, and then just so much army left over. Yeah, and after that type of engagement too, I mean, the Terran player is pretty sure the Zerg doesn't have a lot afterwards. That was clearly a... Not all-in attack, but you know, it's clearly an attack from the Zerg player that they're just throwing everything at you. So yeah, they'll probably remax given a minute of breath, but at the time, after the attack, they're not ready, and Bunny is like, I think that's true. I think I'm going to be able to counterattack. So yeah, he cleans up the creep spread, but then just keeps on pushing forward. Wow. Very unfortunate for Solar. I mean, I would say most people accuse me of being Terran biased, but... I just feel bad for Solar most of the time. Ow. All right, Bunny moves on to the winner's match, where he will face the winner of Dark versus Byun. For the second preliminary match, we have top left Dark, bottom right's Byun, facing off against each other on Grisvon. Byun, a truly unique Terran player when it comes to TVZ. He is in love. Loves it. He should marry it. He loves this 2 racks opener. So much so that it's really the only thing he's been doing recently. Now, he does change the follow-up, and I think that is the power behind it that Byun loves so much. It's clearly not just simply overtaking the entire world, the entire TVZ meta, but you do see it leaking over to other players, to other regions. People are starting to pick up on perhaps its positive results more than its negative, which negative is that it's just not as economical. The good thing about it is that it is a little bit of early pressure. Not a lot, to be fair. 3 Reapers is not a big deal. But then because the follow-up can be so different, and it's so difficult for the Zerg player to determine the follow-up too, that I guess that's why Byun keeps doing it. So, I don't know if this is going to be the future, and 3 years from now we'll be laughing at 2023 us for thinking that this wasn't going to be the TVZ build, but I have my doubts that will happen. I still think this is mostly a Byun specific thing. But there you go, 3 Reapers on the way. Sometimes a 3rd Rax is added on the main. Sometimes, I know Gumiho did a Marine opener with this. That didn't look particularly good, but I could see why it was a thing. And then after the 3 Reapers, you could go into a 2-1-1. You could go into a 4 Rax. You could go into a 3rd CC. You could go into Banshees. It's most streamlined version of the 2 Rax opener is probably into the 2-1-1. Just because you have 2 barracks, it's the 2 and the 2-1-1. But you can do a lot of other things with this. And the Zerg find it especially difficult to scout the follow-up because generally Marines do pop out, and plural Marines, not just 1 or 2. So the Overlords are usually stopped from scouting the main base. This is already a little bit different than Byun's usual opener. He's going to go up to 4 Reapers. Did I miscount? That's the 4th one. Yeah, he's going to go up to 4 Reapers instead of 3. It's a little weird. Byun and 2 Rax sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. Exactly. He loves it. Oh, I haven't even talked about the fact that this wall's off the low ground. I mean, it does. But it's not like getting a command center up in the low ground is the Terran's biggest hurdle in this matchup. It's not usually, anyways. Although, I haven't talked much about his opponent, have I? I've been so focused on Byun and his obsession with the 2 Rax opener. That's, of course, got to talk about Dark a little bit. One of the favorites of the season, I would say. And still one of the, if not, well, not the best Zerg in the world, but certainly a contender. He's definitely the most... ferocious? I need a stronger word than ferocious. He's the most blunt of the Zergs, both in the way that he talks about his opponents, but then also in the way that he plays. I mean, he's all about the blunt force trauma. You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes not necessarily the prettiest game, but Dark just punches you in the face repeatedly. He bludgeons. Raynor is like a assassin. He kind of like nicks you with a poison knife, and you're like, oh shit, I'm dead. And then Cyril is just, I don't know, stone cold paladin walking in a straight line over a rock. Not being fun to talk to, Like, but Dark, he just punched you in the face. He's the fighter of the Zergs. That's for sure. I recently rewatched the D&D movie, if that wasn't clear. So, but in that case also, that Dark not only can do this in a macro sense, but of course he also is one of the cheesier Zergs who still believes that, you know, early Roach Warrens and Nidus Worms can work, and he does make them work, so more power to him. Many other Zergs try to make Nidus's work, and they do not. Dark was playing a lot with his earlier GSL group, doing a bunch of cheeses against his opponents. Almost like he was carefree. He's like, I'm gonna win anyways. Maybe not in the round of 8. Maybe not against Byun. He is playing a very standard game that looks to be going into Ling Baneling. No 330 Roach Warren from him. Byun has followed up his 2-Rax opener with a very, very, very light aggression with those Reapers. Into a very safe Banshee, literally a safe Banshee. It's no cloak Banshee, it's just one Banshee to safeguard you against potential roaches, because it is still dark, and he did still get a Roach Warren. It's gonna help a little bit. But he does mostly have his mind set on a slightly delayed 2-1-1. Yeah, he's gonna swap over, there you go, and then build tanks. He didn't scout that Roach Warren, did he? No, he just is like, it's dark, what else is new? I mean, dark 50-50 roaches and Ling Baneling at this stage in his career, I think. You do have to consider it, but it's not always that he goes into roaches. Oh, and the Banshee provided a little bit of high ground. Thanks, Banshee. Overlord's killed. Not that Dark was using it to find out a whole lot about his opponents. I mean, the other thing that the 2-Rax wall does on the ground, besides maybe kind of safeguard your command center, kind of, but you know what it does? It does take away that supply depot scouting that I was talking about in the previous series, where, like, no supply depots heavily implies a 3cc. Lots of supply depots, 3+ supply depots implies a Hellbat attack, and 2 supply depots, usually a 3rd CC is put here. I mean, that's another reason to do this. Interesting. Anyways, Byun is going for a 2-base attack, so not even starting this off with a double drop. He just immediately picks up his tank with the medevacs that pop later on, and then does a push. Now, a 6-minute push with a decent amount of Marines, but only 1 tank to its name. If Dark was being really, really greedy and going up to 80 drones without scouting, he might be in trouble. But 66 drones on 4 bases, building roaches as I'm speaking. I do think he's got a chance to hold on, but this is the problem. Byun actually does blitz on top of Dark, and this is what Solar versus Bunny did not have happen. Solar was allowed to build a couple of Ravagers, which really would have helped, but Dark only just building up his roach count. Byun jumps on top of it, kills 21 drones, all of the queens, and many of the roaches as well. They are before their upgrades, right? Long before the roach upgrades. So they were taking a beating from the stimmed Marines. 21 drones killed. Again, all of the queens. Only 2 survive. That's going to really hamper the creep spread and the injects. Byun's first engagement, though, not winning the game. Now we do have to talk about, is this game still winnable? Like, did that do enough damage? Because Byun is on his own committed to base attack. It looks like a base setup, though, that where he would get a 3rd CC, because he's getting double upgrades, which implies 3 CC. So it's not 2 base all in. But that was exciting. That was a bit scary for Dark. He does replace those drones pretty quickly. He was getting enough roaches definitely to defend that, but he was getting them. So, you know, he did eventually get them, so he doesn't have to remake them, and so he has the room to build the drones. So 25 drones that early on in the TVZ sounds really good. But Dark didn't lose out, I guess, on as much army. 14 roaches that early on is also still kind of scary, but... Yeah, my point is he didn't have to just build nothing but roaches for a follow-up attack. He had time to fit in some drones, but now he really needs to get back to building roaches, and he's currently supply blocked, so that's not helping him right now. If he wasn't supply blocked, he's absolutely spamming that roach button and the Ravager button. Takes a forward engagement just to stall out this push. He didn't think he would take the army fight. I can almost guarantee that. He just wants to make this take as long as possible so he can fix his supply block. It is fixed, but temporarily. He's got his eyes set on a hive of all things, or fungals. He does like fungals, actually. That might mean that he's not really paying attention to another supply block. There it is. 3 overlords just started. Byun does lose 1 tank that was a little too far forward. Gotta be a little more careful, and Byun is playing a dangerous game by just rallying throughout the middle of the map, but Dark literally just now getting his Zergling speed. We'd have to, send roaches, which is what he is doing. He's got the time. He thinks the Ravagers will buy the time on his third base. So definitely some echoes of the previous series on this map. Buy time, send some units across the map, find a couple of Marauders, find the tank would be ideal. 1-1 is now done for the Roaches as well, so they're going to be very tanky, but 1-1 is also done for the Terran. 2-2 on the way for Dark. He does add on those pathogen glands. Still gonna have to wait a good 30 seconds before you can build those infestors. But when he does have infestors, he can do a lot with them. Dark, a big fan of infestors. But it's not even like, I feel like Byun loves his 2-racks opener. I don't think Dark loves his infestors as much as he seems to really believe in them. You know? He's like one of the Zergs who actually says mid-game infestors are great. Where a lot of other Zerg players wait until, well, they're already on Hive. They're already got Vipers, and then they might add on some infestors. Dark does hold on to his 4-base setup. Is now, well, still hasn't really replaced his drones up to a comfortable amount, because Byun does have a 3rd CC. It's finishing an orbital right now, so it's certainly not very fast, but it's been saturated for a while. He was building SCVs prior to it being taken, so he could just transfer them on over. And Byun is making this look like a macro game. Yeah. But Dark, you know, having fit in the technology when he did, is certainly good to go to get to that Hive tech. And with his slightly more cost-efficient engagement type army, he doesn't necessarily need 85 drones. And that's also what makes Dark scary and more of, I think, like a bludgeoning Zerg. He has a more bludgeoning composition when you go Roach Ravager. Lings are, you know, not even glass cannons, they're just glass. Roaches maybe allow for a little bit more wiggle room, but they're definitely, with the corrosive biles anyways, with a high Ravager count, can be more cost efficient. Combine them with the spellcasters. You're not sacrificing them. They are literally not sacrificing themselves like Banelings do. So a lower drone count's not that big of a deal. Big fungal on top of the bio was excellent there. Infestor does lose its life, but worth. The drop has been threatening to drop in the main base for some time. Finally decides to go for it. He actually tried to dive after the Infestor, which meant that his army was a little pre-split for the fungal. But still, pre-split doesn't necessarily mean all good things if Lings get to wrap around on you. Mother fungal! Oh my god, Byun not at all prepared for the engagement in the middle of the map, and that is actually going to be it. Oh, so many tanks not sieged. All before 2-2 was done. Ew. Because I think just without that particularly terrible fight. It's a 30 army supply difference, but we know, you know, it's Roach Ravager versus 8 tanks in bio. Imagine tank. Like, whew, that's going to be difficult to hold against. Good old fungal, guys. Good old fungal. All right, Dark wins game 1. In the bottom left for game 2 on Royal Blood, we have the blue Zerg Dark. In the top right, it is the red Terran Byun, who did lose the first game. He had not officially lost it after his 2-base attack didn't work. There is a lot of similarities in that game to the previous series with Solar versus Bunny. He want to say Cure for some reason. Including the reaction to a 2-base committal. Although I don't think Dark reacted. I think Dark was going into Roaches, but the end result was Roaches against a 2-base committal. And while it was a little bit sketchier because Byun found that moment before Dark made those Roaches, again, because he still ended up making enough army to secure himself, he replaced the drones relatively quickly. And then there was the extended hold on the high ground with a high corrosive bile count that made Byun not able to really capitalize, force any kills, for instance, on the hatchery, forced Dark to make really difficult decisions. And then he was pushed back entirely. I still think he had a good army in a best case scenario. Those tanks sieged up and the Marauders spread out and ready to go. I think Byun had a chance to still win that game. But it was a 2-base committal, very late 3rd CC, that did not take hold of the game. So Dark was kinda supposed to win that. The fungal just made it look very, very, very easy. So Byun's not going to be deterred from the 2 racks opener because he loves it. And let's see if did he cancel the 4th Reaper? Is that what happened? Because I was talking about the 4th Reaper and then I witnessed 3 Reapers dancing around, not 4. I think he might have canceled it. Anywho, the follow-up can be so different. That last follow-up was kind of a weird, what looked like a safety Banshee, but I gotta say, safety Banshees are usually only made when you are planning on being a super macro yourself. To include a safety Banshee when you're trying to be 2-base aggressive seems not necessarily unnecessary, but it just seems like it's gonna mess up your punchline a lot, you know? Your main attack is going to be a bit worse for it, and it's not like you are being greedy, because you are setting up a 2-base attack, so why do you need a safe Banshee? So that Banshee actually kind of bothers me. Would have been a faster second tank. It might have been. I don't remember his starport timing. But I think that would have been preferable, right? Anyhow. 3rd barracks and a 4th barrack coming down, so I didn't mention this as a potential follow-up. The 4 racks. It's a clever build in a way, but it does seem to be mostly figured out by Zerg players. When they figure it out. When they figure out it's a 4 racks, they kind of know what to do. Sometimes it is difficult to figure it's a 4 racks, especially with the way that Byun does open. So again, some reason to have this 2 racks opener over and over and over again. So the Marines pop out, safeguard any of the Overlord positions, and I don't know, is it a 2-1-1? Is it another 2-base tank attack? Is it a 4 racks? Oh shit, Marines are on the way. You know. That the Marines, if they are unscouted, have a chance to win the game, stim and win. If they are scouted, which they should be, at least on the way over, then they really force the Zerg into an uncomfortable position. Do I drone? Do I make army? Do I drone to make army? And then if they choose incorrectly, too incorrectly, they can die. Slow or fast, either one. So that's what Byun's going to be doing. Give him a minute and a half, and he'll be there. He'll be on the front lines right now, just trying to harass with his Reapers. You know, the Reaper opener, you would think at least would force the Zerglings out, and Zergling speed would usually be invested to, kind of default for a Zerg player. But you might even think, especially, go Zergling speed against someone who always opens up 3 Reapers and has notoriously good Reaper micro. Didn't really talk about that, but both games now, Dark has said, I don't need speed. Speed is for suckers. Speed is for stupid people. He just is going to go right into his Roachhorn again. Which I think is a great thing to have against someone who's mostly dedicating to a 2-base attack. If it was a 1-base attack, which doesn't exist in pro games anymore, I mean, not having speed might be terrible. But, you know, 3 Reapers aren't really ever going to do that much damage. Queens are pretty good. Roaches would be great against this, but once again, we have a timing issue. Dark did not know what the follow-up was going to be until he saw the Marines pop forward, and now he knows, but the Roachhorn's not done, dudes. And 22 slowlings. Well, now we're going to make Dark maybe look a little bit silly for not getting speed. Our Queen's good enough to hold. 1 Queen goes down, 2nd Queen gets transfused, Lings sacrificing themselves for the greater good of the colony. And it looks like slowlings are all you needed anyways. What the freak? Queen's pretty good. Queen's... I don't know about you, man, but getting Marines, that many Marines to the front line with stim against someone who has no Zerg speed and a no Roachhorn, you like, I don't know. If I told you that tale, would you think Terran would win? I feel like I would have guessed they would win. And yet we just saw with our very own eyes the Terran player not winning. And not only are the epic slow Ling Queen combo back in action, they are also accompanied by roaches, so clearly Byun's follow-up wasn't going to do shit. I mean, forget about it. And this is... well, all falling into Dark's favor, isn't it? Dark has chosen perfectly everything, because he's so perfect. Well, he is supply blocked once again. His Overlord got killed, and he wasn't replacing them. He's in a wonderful position. Byun is going up into a 3rd CC, so he's not 2 racks all-inning, but it's not like Dark needs 2 base all-in to warrant the roach production. No, he's just gonna go into roaches. That's how this is gonna work. It actually looks like Dark is still kind of scared. I mean, Dark makes this look like it's the easiest thing in the world, but he also might be kind of shitting his pants right now. Like, oh god, oh god, oh my god, Marines. But he's really fine. So the second spy crawler seems unnecessary. The first one even seemed unnecessary when everything was all said and done. Yeah. 3rd CC for Byun's gonna land. He does have 1-1 slightly faster than his opponents. I mean, going into a macro game from here is really not that bad for the Terran. Because what it did do, the pushing of the Marines, was not win the game. It did force Dark to build army. So Dark was not building drones. The classic Zerg problem. I only have so much larva, what do I put it in? So in that case, you know, Dark is not really all that far ahead. I really thought that was a grand setup to die. And he didn't. And now Byun gets to play around with his Marines and his medevacs. Still seeing that it's still the Lings is kind of funny too. I mean, now he really has a chance to try and abuse his multitasking. But here's the thing, if Dark gets a solid number of roaches, he could just split them up in typical locations. And as long as Byun doesn't surprise him with a straight-up attack, Dark having split roaches, you know, they're not really going to get overwhelmed easily. Queens are prime position to try and take down a medevac, but not enough of them. So they're going to have to pull back and wait for the roaches, which are on the way. Drones were preemptively pulled anyways. Seems like Dark saw this coming a mile away. Loses 1 queen, but so gets that medevac. Byun should not have tried to save that last Marine. He was not worth it. And now 1-1 is caught up for Dark, as Byun is late to starting his 2-2. Doesn't have the gas for it. Actually had to cancel something. I swear I just saw 300 gas appear from nowhere. Okay, maybe I'm mistaken. But does have now 2-2 on the way. Dark once again supply blocks. He's building 5 overlords this time. 2 spine crawlers. Hey, they're not useless as the game goes on. They're going to have a little bit of help against the drops of Byun. Just a couple of roaches, a couple of queens come over here, and the spines will be brilliant. I don't know if Dark could necessarily get an engagement going, but defensively, Dark is fine. Creep spread over halfway. Byun would love to clean that up, but he's going to take one of these creep timbers down. Dark comfortable on 4 bases, 74 drones. It's actually better than last game. And the upgrade's really very, very close to being even. Dark is fully committing to a Ling Roach Ravager attack. He does finally have speed done. And he's not gone into an infestation pit. There it is. But he is currently only on Roach Ravager. And as Byun also gets maxed out with a higher tank count and a higher medevac count, we do know what happens with Bio versus Roach Ravager. You know, Bio's supposed to win. Dark with a lot of Ravagers, by the way. Does make his army a little less tanky, but if the Corrosive Biles are buying that space, buying that time exactly like what they did here, then it's all fair. And Dark managed to at least kill one of those tanks. The medevac count is also not particularly high, so every stim will hurt. Roach Ravager, very much sustained damage, so you can kind of wear them out, similar to when you watch Blink Stalkers force the runaround game. And Dark is losing a handful of Ravagers here and there. 6 in total have gone down so far, but he is in a position to replace those. Not too rich, but definitely not poor. Byun is also almost maxed out and has a decent economy, but his 4th CC was certainly not super quick, building the main base as well. Only halfway done. You know, if he does not do significant damage with this particular push, look at everything that Dark has on the way. And what that would mean if Byun has to back away. Hydralisk Den does point to the intentions of a Lurker Den. Is a Hydralisk... Are they both dens? Hydralisk Den, Lurker Den? Yeah, okay. And of course he has his infestors on the way. Or will, soon enough. Burrow as well, so we can get the shark attacks. There's the infestors. He did engage midway. Tried a little bit of a run-by as well. The run-by got completely cleaned up. The attack on the front was not necessarily an attack, more of a time buying. And Dark is, again, able to replace that even as he grabs all of these structures and buildings and upgrades and units. He is getting everything to set himself up well for the macro game. Byun, not as much, just because he's missing that 4th command center. If he had it down and already saturated and was working on a 5th, I'd feel much better about Byun's chances as the game goes on. Because even though he doesn't have ghosts, which are usually that late game signal, and he doesn't have double factory either, Byun does play the heavy bio style, but that heavy bio style really does depend on having a lot of momentum very consistently, and I would not say this game was really a lot of momentum gained for Byun. Maybe a little bit. Some drops doing some damage. This base was denied, retaken over to the left side. Dark is going to have some amazing fungals if Byun's not paying attention. Couple of corrosive biles cutting him back. There's one of those fungals. There's another one to lock him down tight. And Byun has actually been chipped away at this point. His medevac count was not very high to begin with for his particular style of play. Now reduced down even further, basically out of juice. His tank count really not that bad, but also a bit spread out. One of the reinforcing ones gets taken down. These 3 might hold this position, but God forbid Lings come up on this, or Vipers, which actually Dark does not have quite yet, only building them now, but that's not something that Byun really knows. All that Byun knows is that a hive is done, upgrades are on the way, and a gigantic army keeps on stopping him before he can get anywhere particularly abusive. Byun's position, again, never really favorable for him. It's not that he's dead, but I think he is dying. And now, he's really dying, perhaps. Most of the Zerg army coming in. The rest of the Terran army comes forward too, but remember that they've been simmed so often with so few medevacs that they are not healthy units, man. This is going to instantly drain these 2 medevacs, and if Dark comes back, it's going to be problematic. Fortunately for Byun, it does seem like Dark is going to pull back and take the time allowed from being in the lead at this point to go ahead and get to those lurkers. And what Byun does not have with this style of play, although he did eventually get the 2 factories, he does not have ghosts. He could add ghosts, and I think he does eventually most of the time, but he's not there yet. And ghosts would be a much more solid answer to lurkers than regular old bio. 4th base is an orbital, which seems a little greedy, but it is actually something that makes sense if, again, this style of play is doing its bestest at keeping up the momentum. If you've just been rolling over... Ooh, cat treats. Rolling over the Zerg player over and over and again. But I don't think Byun has really been rolling over him. Finally finding a decent position over here, but the bio was stacked up once again. Last second split stops the corrosive biles from doing truly devastating damage. But the tanks weren't really involved in that fight, so it wasn't all that great either. And now Vipers are here. Roach is attacking Byun's 4th base, that greedy orbital. The ducks come down, 2 tanks taken out of the equation, and Lurkers now forcing the bio to step away from them. More abducts come down, more tanks fall, and those tanks are really what's going to deal with these lurkers. The bio alone cannot do it, especially as overstimmed as they are, unhealed. Oh my goodness, the lurker spawns, destroying everything. Corrosive biles killing that last tank, and a Sharky Infester waiting for the beautiful fungal. There it is, there it is! Pretty good fungal, but it was towards the tail end of the engagement, of which Byun was already losing anyways. So just a cherry on top to Byun's unsuccessful push. Dark will take this 2-0 and move on to face Bunny. He did win that last game. Bunny in the winner's match. The winner's match is here. Maybe it is the players you expect. Maybe it isn't. As I said, I think all 4 of the players in today's group have a good chance of making it out, but these guys, one of them is guaranteed to make it through to the round of 4 of GSL. In the bottom right, we have Bunny. And in the top left, we do have Dark, who defeated Byun 2-0. Bunny defeated Solar 2-1. So TVZ for days, guys. No ZVZs allowed. No ZVZs. ZVZs are dead and gone. Although apparently there was a pretty good ZVZ between Wade and Cyril recently. I didn't catch that one, but yeah. That also means no TVTs, which maybe people are more excited about. But yeah, Bunny, surprising me, because I, you know, been very, very honest, perhaps even obnoxiously so, that I don't know if I believe in Bunny. I'm worried about him. You know, I just want to give him a hug if he needs it, But his performance against Solar proved to me that he doesn't need a hug. At least not right then and there for TVZ. His TVZ was really good. Especially that first game was fantastic. And I liked his build order choices. But, yeah, that game number 1 was fantastic. Game number 2 was a solid choice of builds. It didn't work out. I think Solar read it too well. And game 3, well, okay, Solar probably should have won that one. Bunny maybe was given a little bit of luck. But, you know, there's a saying, something about seizing luck or making your own luck or whatever it is. If you don't seize the opportunity, then does it exist? And he did seize the opportunity to win that game. With the 60 seconds that were allowed to him to win the game, he won it. Waiting any longer might have made it, well, a much longer game at the very least. But he saw the opportunity, and he snatched victory away from Solar to now once again being a TVZ, but against a much different Zerg player. Solar, generally a macro guy who does not often play roaches. He will occasionally, and he certainly will if it's the right thing to do. Like facing a 2-base attack. But, you know, otherwise not so much. Dark is more likely than any other Zerg to all in, cheese, and play roaches just because he wants to play roaches. So this is very different for Bunny. As far as Dark facing a different Terran, that is also true. Bunny is not a lover of the 2-Rax opener, as you can see. He's going into a much more typical Hellion opener, in fact. I think just facing Dark kind of, you know that you need to be more worried about him than most other Zergs. So Bunny is going to, I would say, play to Dark right here. He's going to go into a 1-1-1, which is far safer than a 3cc build. Although if you end up getting only a Liberator, it's not that much safer. Lings are already causing a problem as Bunny did not go for a Reaper. Right? Yeah. And he just lost one of his Marines. The Hellions do eventually pop out, but this means that Dark not only got some damage done, but a full scout. A full scout on the 1-1-1. It's still a bit ambiguous as to what this 1-1-1 is going to go into. In fact, with what Dark scouted, it almost looked like it was going to be like Stim and Viking Liberator. But the Tech Lab wasn't here, so that's why it's so weird. But the Tech Lab ends up going onto the Starport, which is not odd. The odd part is the lack of Tech Lab. There it is. There it is. It's like, you have the money for it. So that was just... I don't know what that was. But, you know, you're going to go into Stim most times. Although, you know, Battle Mech has made kind of a reappearance. I don't know if Bunny's been doing it a whole lot. Dark might have scouted the 1-1-1, but you know what he doesn't have is speed. Once again, at least delaying his speed, although he is planning on getting it. It is late, so the Ling's not able to chase these Hellions down as quickly. Still seems like this is ultimately a defense. Dark losing mostly mining time. 4 drones is not too bad for... And for 4 Hellions, actually, it's not bad at all for the Zerg player. So that was scary. Don't blame Bunny for trying to dive in. I don't think any of us would, but it just didn't actually... It looked like a golden opportunity to get 8 drones, and I got 4. At best. Stim is, in fact, on the way. Banshees are coming out. And this is really the safest thing you can do as a Terran player, is get Hellions and Banshees. The perfect combination against both Lings and Roaches. And since no professional Zerg player goes for a 2-base Spire, you don't have to worry about that. So I think this is really being done because he fears Dark more than he thinks, oh, okay, I'm going to get damage done with the Banshees. Or the Banshees are going to be this excellent distraction, or whatever other reason people would get Banshees. In fact, he does get a safety... Wait, no, that was the second one. Huh, I'm blind. Sorry. The first Banshee's already out. First Banshee are trying to do some damage, but also already taking away... taking some health. No Spore Crawler rooted. Now it is. Banshee gets 3 drone kills and is kind of stuck. Lair's only just begun, so it's not actually stuck, but Bunny doesn't know that. Yeah, he's only just now gonna scout the lair. No! Scout it! Scout it! Alright, he gets a 4th drone. This Banshee accidentally runs into Queens near a Spore Crawler, so that's not gonna be too much more helpful. And I guess, you know, if both Banshees live, 5 drones is already more than I was gonna give them credit for. So, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's actually a nice Banshee opener. They both live. They can protect against roaches, as Dark is actually going roaches. And if it isn't roaches, they can still help scout and defend run-bys. So this is still kind of nice. 6 drones in total killed. Bunny moves on to his 3rd CC. 1-1 is on the way. Dark, not really getting the fastest 1-1. Not really, and really not a fast Roachborn at all. Almost like at the last second they decided to go into Roaches. His drone count is pretty heavy though, so while his tech choices might have come down later than previous games, his drone count is looking mighty fine. Even after he lost 4 plus 6, right? Yeah. 4 from the Henley and 6 from the Banshees. That's still a pretty good drone count. Layer's done, so the hatchery is not really under threat here. Is it? No, the hatchery can't die. The drone could die. And the Banshee could die. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god, okay, Bunny. Whew. Alright. Keeps the Banshees alive. Unfortunately, they are over there trying to find some damage. Not back at home, helping against a Ling run by, which does catch Bunny at the exact right time. He had just moved out with his army and his reinforcements were still a little bit low. Now the Lings will be taken care of. He even trapped them to make sure they be taken care of. 4 SCVs go down. Not a big deal whatsoever. Banshees maybe were cleared up. No, they come back to help out with the main push, which is still underway. Bunny could have been in a much more problematic space if he had been super distracted by the run by and pounced upon. But Dark was not ready to tango, not yet anyways. Now he is trying to take advantage of Bunny not quite being ready to go. I mean, only 1 tank wasn't super impressive. Crocobile down easy peasy. A lot of Lings do give up their lives, and actually the Ravager's a little bit vulnerable, but Queens are here. One of them goes down. 400 transfuses could be had. Queens have actually been energied out. Creep spread, injects, and transfuses because of the Banshees, I guess, right? So that's that impacted that battle a little bit more. And the Banshees are still finding more. These Banshees are approaching S tier, honestly. As far as professional double Banshee openers, this is approaching S tier. They're alive. They killed a bunch of drones. They forced a lot of energy from the Queens. And, again, they are still alive. Bunny did lose a medevac, though, and he is forced to entirely disengage. But back home, he is macroing up. Not looking too shabby. 4th TC is on the way. Double Drop was trying to hit the main base after the 3rd was successfully defended, but it just skedaddles. You know, no harm in skedaddling. Dark had been a little lopsided on his upgrades on top of being later to them, so still not on his way to 2-2. Bunny starts up his. Infestors are on the way because Dark. And Dark is also eyeing Lurkers as his ultimate tech comp. Bunny's not going to be totally without aggression, moving out once again with a couple of Marines. And the Banshees continuing to kill creep tumors. Seriously. I'm going to say these are the best Banshees I've seen in professional TVZ in a year. Well, in an evenly matched professional game. I guess I have to be really specific. That's a lot of Roaches to be traded out right there. Fortunately, Dark's upgrades were done. That would have been even worse if that +1 Carapace wasn't done. But decent trade there for the Marines. This map is rather large. Generally, if it goes into that Supreme late game, the size of the map does favor the Zerg a little bit, but the way the bases are positioned are nice for Terran. I'm really happy that Gressfawn has lived up to my expectations. When I first looked at it, I was like, I don't know, so many bases, so big, And I looked at the way that a Terran could set up their bases and the way that they can defend their bases as well from run-bys. And it actually is quite nicely designed. IMO. So this is a very popular map in TVZ, because I think both players like it. Certainly both players don't mind it. Both races, that is. Double Banshee's still freaking alive, dude. Like, what? 6 + 9 kills. Plus the creep tumors, plus the creep, the queen energy. Maybe a couple of queens too. Double Drop is picked up. Dark doesn't have any anti-air yet, so of course he's always going to be bothered by these doubles. But the Vipers are on the way, Hydras are on the way, Nidus Worm is on the way, because we are getting into a late game TVZ. Bunny's 4th base is secure as a planetary. His 2-2 is about to finish, and he is actually building up his army all together to go for an actual push. You know, again, some other Terrans would not do this. They would just be back on their heels, back at home, preparing for a real drawn-out late-game TVZ. I'm really happy that Bunny is continuing to be aggressive. I'm not saying that he knows better than other Terrans, of course. There's reasons to do either one, but personally, this is much more exciting. Now, this is a really big reach for Bunny, who kind of just walked on a creep spread like he had no care in the world, and apparently he didn't. He will actually get his tank sieged up in front of that hatchery before Dark was quite ready to go. Now his Vipers are coming into play, killing 4 tanks off the bat, and Lurkers are again holding the line to a certain degree, but because Bunny so courageously, and I guess somewhat correctly, moved deep onto Dark's side of the map, he's already done a decent bit of damage. Dark still has 4 bases and a huge bank and a good composition, but this is not a bad spot to be in as Bunny. He's actually going to jump on top of the Lurkers. Might be a mistake. It's kind of hard to see how many there are, and there are a couple even behind that. Transfuse is also going down to try and save the Lurkers' lives, but even though I couldn't really tell what was going on, apparently Bunny could. He was focusing a lot of them down. Now only 4 Lurkers remain. Still a handful of tanks threatening to help, right, against the Lurkers. Medivacs even continuing to be pumped out. Oh, and Ghosts are on the way already. Well, this is excellent then. Bunny, if he had to back away and wait for Ghost, would have given Dark a lot of time to recover, but the Ghost already on the front lines. Could be a game changer, could be a game winner for Bunny, or maybe not. The snipes actually went down on Ravagers. Tanks got abducted once again into the Lurkers that were not being targeted, and the rest of the bio was cleared up thanks to Ling, Ravager, Hydra combining together, and Bunny is forced to disengage. Kind of a weird use of the Ghost, but I think what happened was that he was prepared to snipe down important units, and then the engagement was already starting. So he just kind of threw his snipes out, hoping that they would hit something important. So Bunny does have to back away entirely, but with the Ghost counting up to about 7 or 8 as it looks like it, he will hopefully get those snipes down. Was in range of the Lurker Spines initially, so that didn't really work out, but the tanks also sieging up help out. There are those snipes coming down, ensuring also that Dark cannot retreat, and you can see that Dark is the one that made the huge mistake. He should not have counterattacked. He was hoping to find Bunny still unloading his Medivacs into, you know, barely enough reinforcements to hold on, and then he would have gained a lot of momentum, reinforced with Lings, and dug into the economy of the third base, but that was not the case. Bunny had enough to defend. He had transitioned into Ghost at the exact right time, and Dark is the one to take that supply drop. Only on 4 bases as well, replacing his 5th. He definitely didn't have the best economy after that 5th base was killed. He had a bank, is what he had, but not really the ultimate best economy. So now he's double expanding, going to basically try and make up for that. Probably has to add on a handful more drones too if he really wants to recover his economic position and a bank. Bunny, as a Terran player goes, has mules, but then also kept 85 SCVs alive during most of this game. 5th base up as a planetary, 6th on the way, extra orbital commands as well. Bunny is kicking butts when it comes to TVZ, man. This is really impressive stuff. And such a nice change of pace from the more passive TVZs that we sometimes see. I love that he keeps on getting nukes too. Frankly, they were not worth their costs in the games versus Solar, but because they might be worth their costs, you should get them. It's kind of the argument. Nidus Worm tried to go up in the main base, by the way, but that was denied. Bunny is keeping an eye out for those Nidus Worms. However, one on the 6th base, or whatever this is not nearly as important, and Bunny is distracted, but this planetary will help hold. SCV's going for the repair. Ghost coming in as well as a surround, so Bunny is absolutely going to obliterate this particular fight. And Dark was once again in a place where he ought not to be aggressive against Bunny. He did not have the supply. He did not have a superior composition. Him trying to find Bunny off guard, basically out of position, absolutely did not work out. And now this Nidus Worm, what actually even popped out of it? A Lurker? Is that it? Cleared up. This Nidus Worm is just for time buying. He really has nothing to put in these Nidus Worms that is all that scary, but maybe it'll buy this time so Dark can finally get his bases up and mining again. Nuke is coming down, and I don't know if Dark paid attention immediately. He absolutely did. Quick check on all of his bases, and this is his 3rd or 4th or whatever it was, so he checked it pretty quickly. Reinforcements might accidentally run into it, though. Oh, he thought he killed the Ghost fast enough, so yeah, a little awkward. Not the biggest of deals, but it's kind of the same thing as what happened with that Nidus Worm. That just drew potentially Dark's army back. Not that it really did, but it could have. Dark was just simply not prepared to go out on the map again. He is still licking his wounds from some bad fights earlier on. Another Nidus Worm is not going to draw back the Terran because it's not even in sight of the Terran. So Bunny is going to stick it to this base. Definitely get the kill. Maybe some of these Lurkers too. And the Nidus Worm is not that scary. It pops and makes it sound. Bunny has a panic attack, checks his main base, and says, oh, thank God. And then moves on with his life. Some lurker harassment is definitely good, denying a lot of SEV mining, but Bunny has found the Nidus Worm, and as such has found a lot of Dark's army, which he will easily clean up once again. I do like the idea of Nidus Worms being used as retreats, a retreat option for the lurkers. I mean, that's pretty cool. Maybe they can escape the ghost snipe if they jump into that Nidus Worm, but if that is the ultimate plan, it's only kind of working. And then also on the plan of maybe throwing things at the wall and seeing if they stick is kind of working, like this lurker. It's like, well, I hope they don't notice that I've repositioned it right into their army. Nidus Worm coincidentally in range of that tank. Bunny once again on the offensive. He did not kill the hatchery earlier on. Now does get the kill. And is looking towards the third base, getting some snipes already set up. He has so many ghosts, so many snipes. The lurkers do not stand a chance. The drones, are they being pulled into this? Apparently they were, which would, funnily enough, be kind of effective against ghost sniping. They was only ghost sniping, so they would have punched them and distracted them. Anyway, 16 drones go down, of course, and Dark is in as troublesome of a position as ever. Still no real bank to talk of, while Bunny has gone back to mining on all of his bases at 71 SCVs. Oh, and this base in the bottom left, plus all the extra orbitals. More units of Dark being thrown across the map, mostly for time buying, to try and cause some chaos. Not really guaranteed to do damage at all, but hoping they'll pull the army back, maybe cause some SCV kills, maybe catch a reinforcing unit. But if they can't escape, then Bunny gets that guaranteed kill on an expensive Hydra, an expensive Lurker, a couple of Nidus Worms, whatever it is. Bunny definitely has an anti-Lurker composition. He has 25 ghosts. Dark would be able to handle this army if he was maxed out on pure Ling, Baneling, Hydra, Viper, and Fester. And, you know, obviously taking good engagements, of course. But I just want to emphasize that him continuing to go into Lurkers is basically playing into Bunny's hand. But Dark didn't have many options. He was trying to get all the chaos. He was trying to get all the economic damage. He was trying to make Lurkers work against someone who had 25 ghosts. And that just wasn't going to be pretty. But Dark couldn't do anything else. He did not have the economy to try and swap over into the large economy, Zerg dominating the game type of TVZ. Bunny looks really good. Bunny looks really, really good. GG's wins game number 1 and is one step closer to reaching the GSL round of 4. In the bottom left, we do have Bunny, now up a game. In the top right, we have Dark, who, oh boy, when did he start losing that last game? It's kind of a long one. He did the Lings, and then well, kind of messed up the defense. He wasn't prepared, that's what it was. He wasn't prepared for the big maxed out fight that hit his 5th base. That's when he started losing. He was not quite prepared. Oh, his 2 SCVs are on the map. Hello. He was not quite prepared. He actually was about to be prepared. He was about to have energy on his Vipers. He was about to be maxed out. He was about to be ready to meet the attack head on, but it was just seconds away from actually happening. So that really gave Bunny a good chance to win the game, and he delivered. Excellent from Bunny. Now Bunny is going to try and follow up 1-2 punch, right? Long, elaborate macro game. What does a Korean Terran do? 2 racks! It's actually a bit on the nose, to be honest, but it's such an audacious 2 racks that perhaps Dark would not scout it, but coincidentally, Dark sending his second Overlord 2 scouts, the left side 2 racks. Oh, isn't that gonna scout it? Just kidding, I actually thought this would get close enough. Oh my god, he's not gonna get close enough, holy shit. Oh boy. Well, does this just auto win? It's a hatch first into gas pool. 2 Raxes right up there. I mean, right on up there. It's a little uncomfortably close. And Dark does not know about it, even still. So the 2 Rax is going to be effective. I think we can all agree on that. The 2 Rax should guaranteed be effective. Dark will have no choice, I think, but to play into roaches, right? Dark has dealt with such 2 racks. Well, not like this, but he's dealt well with post Turax TVZ. So if someone were to cover from this, I'd give Dark the most credit. He was 100% totally behind versus Byun in this one Turax game. And I just watched in amazement as Dark almost brought the game back. It ended up being a 16-minute game. And Dark refused to die. Bunny's going for the throat. That's a bit dangerous. This isn't a 3-Rax. It's not a whole lot of Marines. Well, maybe well-controlled. They're well-controlled, right? Roachborn is on the way. Dark is planning to go into the Roaches to bust out of this and perhaps even immediately counterattack. Bunny should figure... if they're not building Spine Crawlers, they probably are going to go into Roaches. They might try and bust out with Ling Queen, but you really got to be careful. It's Dark after all, right? So, like, you got to be careful about the Roachborn. He saw the Roachborn, so definitely should be getting a factory into Banshees, I guess? Like, Cyclone into Banshees would probably be best. Good target fire there from Bunny. Nope, decides not to target fire. Actually take down the attacking units. One more Roach will go down. Bunker number 2 is still up and running, and the hatchery is a guaranteed goner. When I say one base rushes were non-existent in Pro, I mean I was clearly talking about like a 1-1-1 or 2-1-1 or 4 racks on one base. I mean 2 racks happen all the time. I would hope that my established career in StarCraft 2 would give me at least that much credit. Jesus. Cyclone is on the way, and the Cyclone is the fastest thing that Bunny can get. Just seriously, Banshee would be the most secure thing he could get, but you're not going to get to a starport that quickly. So the Tech Lab builds kind of quickly. It's done. It can be repaired is also the benefit there. But, you know, obviously Tech Lab for a Cyclone. Not going to go into Hellions against some guy who's going Roaches. The hatchery did die, and the Marines did try and return home. But they are going to be intercepted and traded. But, you know, traded is still decent. No. Hey, I actually don't think that 2-Rax is really all in at all either. A 3-Rax is a bit all in, but a 2-Rax, Maru spent the entirety of 2017 proving that a 2-Rax wasn't all in. That is a freak ton of Roaches. I mean, if there's one thing that Bunny's units have done is that it's a freak ton of Roaches. Unfortunately, that does mean his barracks have been producing units that have now been cleared up because they were so outgunned. So the only thing Bunny has against the growing number of Roaches are a couple of Cyclones. And Cyclones, while they have a world of micro out on the map, they quickly run out of micro if they try to defend a particular location. So, for instance, your high ground. The Cyclones might be pushed back. The starport might have... If you knew for a fact that Dark was going to all in from here, Bunny might have wanted to go into a 1-1-1 immediately after the 2-Rax. Which is really awkward, by the way, because the second gas wasn't particularly quick. So he couldn't even really do it. But again, if he knew for a fact... he would have wanted this much quicker. Right now, because it's on the front lines to take advantage of the Tech Lab, it also means that it's vulnerable to the Corrosive Bile. The Banshee might not even get out. And of course, if it does, is it going to be out in time? That is a lot of Roach Ravager. Cyclone's going to tackle the Overlord, try and take away that high ground vision, but guess what? The Roach Ravager army is big enough to just go ahead and run up the ramp anyways. It's not going to care about the loss of the Overlord. The Banshee will not be out yet. 2 Cyclones trying to win against a horde of Roach Ravager, and it's not going to work out. Dark actually just spamming that attack button, spamming the army button off of one base is going to defeat Bunny. Yeah, the 2-Rax did technically work out, but Bunny's follow-up did not account for a real Zerg all-in from then on. He thought that this would be a bust into a little bit of harassment, and that he wasn't going to be caught over-defending against it. Instead, it was an all-in, so he was very much caught under-defending. GG, Dark, continuing to show just how much of a powerful Zerg he is. Literally just decides to bludgeon the guy to death. And it works! So, we head on to Game 3. So now the series is tied up 1-1. In the bottom right, we have Bunny. In the top left, we have Dark. As a reminder, the replays are available on the Patreon for GSL. If you haven't heard, they have a crowdfunding initiative for GSL. All of the Patreon money goes to the prize pool, so it goes to the players. It's already quite high up there, but it's still far less than what Blizzard was supplying for GSL. So if you love the Korean scene, you love these players, definitely go check out patreon.com/GSL. They would appreciate being able to, you know, live as a pro gamer and not have to eat ramen every day. Which is probably what many of them are doing, regardless of their money situation. But, you know, they shouldn't have to, is the kicker. Neo-Humanity being the decider map. I do think of late game TVZ for this one, for sure. I guess if I'm being honest, I think of a lot of the new maps as being TVZ macro, so there is that. But particularly Terrans defending these ramps, protecting 4 or 5 bases. Also, as a reminder, I guess, a little less soul-crushing, is that the round of 4 is what these guys are shooting for. Cure and Maru are already in the round of 4, having won the previous group 2 days ago. And so, there are no more Protosses. Goodbye, Protosses. Classic tried, man. Tried. But goodbye. And so that means that there are 2 Zergs fighting to make it a non-TVTVTVT. Dark and Solar. Dark is 1 game away from ensuring at least one non-mirror matchup. But still has to win it. Solar is in the losers match against... Holy shit. Against who? Hold on here. We got... Byun! There we go. I cannot for the life remember all 4 player names. It's a good thing I don't cast this professionally. Anyway, so he's winning against Byun, who I think, you know, is still overall a great TVZer. And he's probably more comfortable against Solar's playstyle as well. Dark just seems like a very uncomfortable Zerg to play against. Not that I'd win against anyone, but I'd be the most scared to play against Dark. I know, forgetting Byun specifically makes me sad. Makes me a sad puppy. Because Byun has a sad puppy. You ever seen that guy's puppy? It's kind of sad. It's got that sad face. Third CC is on the way for Bunny, as well as a, well, pretty damn greedy follow-up 2 racks. Follow-up racks to his first one. He's going into a 2-on-1 by the looks of it, which is, again, one of the greediest things you can do as a Terran player. You don't have that kind of catch-all defense building that is the factory. Cyclones are great, although last game they don't deserve any medals for that one. Tanks are great. Even Widowmines are helpful. 5 Marines versus 2 Marines. Not helpful. But Bunny is, well, frankly, figuring that he's not being all-in from Dark in this series. So far, so good. And that he specifically will not be all-in here, or he will scout the all-in with some excellent Reaper control. And I'm just going to say that fortunately he's not being all-in. I think if Dark did throw down a Roachborn right now, I'd still be very scared for Bunny, but it's okay. So Bunny gets away with this great opener. It's not a 2-on-1, by the way. He goes into the 3rd rack, so he's going to have a lot of Marines. This is what he did versus Solar, isn't it? So a lot of Marines run out onto the map, hopefully as unscouted as possible, threaten the 3rd base, trade out so that Dark can't get a lot of drones, and then Bunny plays a heck of a macro game afterwards, eventually adding on his medevacs and his tanks and all the good stuff. So Dark has nothing available to even scout what's going on. He's lost 1 Ling, so he didn't lose an Overlord. He just only has 1 very off to the side of the map. So he doesn't see what's happening in the main, but he doesn't even see what's happening in the natural. Again, those supply depots being at least somewhat of a tell as to the Terran's intentions. And he has no Ling on the front either to scout the Marines moving out. Now, Dark would have, hopefully, been watching his opponent, his would-be opponents. Okay, that Ling just saw that it was a 3rd CC. It basically just saw that it was a 3rd CC with the supply depot timings. That it's not a Hellion opener either. No Hellions were seen. But, well, actually, this could also look like a 2-base all-in, to be honest. The amount of supply depots. Because Bunny actually has more supply depots than he needs. So this actually looks more like a 2-base all-in. Anyways, 3rd CC scouted, so it's okay. But this Sling is only scouting the 3rd CC. It's still not scouting the Marines. Okay, thankfully, we move on. I do like Mew, but I'm still gonna time out that copy. Copy pasta. Overlord gets killed, and Dark is in a fair bit of trouble because he is supply blocked, which has kind of been his weakness this entire series. Supply blocks, man. He is not going to be able to build the roaches that he wants to kill all of these Marines. The stim happens because Bunny realizes there's like nothing defending over here. Just Queens are going to try and defend, and maybe they'll do the job yet again. They looked awfully impressive previously. But this is still going to be that good trade that I was talking about. Bunny actually taking down some of the roaches, some of the drones as well. Dark, that supply block could not have been worse. He would have had the roaches to save his queens, to save his hatchery, to save his mining if he wasn't supply blocked. It would have been close, but it would have happened. And so that supply block extends the lack of roach time by like 20 seconds. And now Dark is just simply being overwhelmed, losing more roaches, losing Overlord, still not clearing up the Marines. The Marines are actually going to try and skedaddle, which they usually are not capable of doing. And Bunny is on 3 bases, guys. This was not all that committed. Dark might try and go for a counterattack, but with slow roaches, no Ravagers, not going to happen. Oh, Dark is in some trouble. Does have at least his 4 bases up, and now he's not supply blocked. But he has to replace so many queens, so he's missing injects, he's missing creep spread, he's missing anti-air. As little as they add sometimes, they do add something to the medevac micro. Upgrades have not started for Dark either, as Bunny is closing in on his 1-1. Great wall of supply depots coming down to safeguard his 3rd as well. And Bunny is also adding on Marauders already, so he has that very direct counter to the Marauder, the Roaches. Also, tanks being rallied forward. Bunny feels the momentum, he feels the hype, he feels like he's about to enter into a round of 4 GSL. But you do want to be a little cautious. The last thing you want to do is hit while Dark still has a power spike, right? So Dark is clearly fumbling. But if Dark had 40 roaches on the way that were supply blocked and they pop and Bunny thinks you have no roaches and he runs into 40 roaches, it's bad news for Bunny. But if Bunny just takes a bit of a chill pill, continues to read the situation and plays it nice and safe, well, yeah, he's absolutely in the lead. Tanks, if they were sieged, would have been nice to draw back to, but now it might be a case of running away. Yeah, I think maybe you run away now. The Zelnaga is showing how many units are being built up. It's still not that impressive, but you don't really know. You can have a strong guess, especially when you're as good at the game as Bunny is, but even the professionals interview afterwards and they'll say, I thought he was in a much more desperate situation than he was, or vice versa. But, yeah, Bunny playing it safe, I like that. Rallying the tanks into Dark's, again, power surge, the time at which he is actually producing units, would have been devastating. But Dark is now very mid-game focused, right? He's still not supply blocked, he's larva blocked, actually. But yeah, Dark is mid-game focused for now. He wants to survive to even try and get a 4-base economy. He'll be comfortable on a lower drone count because of his composition, but also because he's Dark. He's more practiced in this particular style than I think any other Zerg player is. And he does make comebacks off of this position. 4 bases, not the best economy, but working his way up the Fungals and Baneling Ravager. That is one of the best comeback armies that a Zerg can get. They don't really have the equivalent of a Dark Shrine or a Mass Doom Drop or whatever a Terran would do, I suppose, but this composition gives me the most hope for Dark. The lack of creep spread over on his right base and his left base is quickly dashing that hope. As Bunny runs in, guns down potentially 2 hatcheries. Okay, this one does go down. He sacrifices some of his army. And on the right side, the hatchery was actually very safe. So Bunny gets 1 hatchery, loses a handful of army. It's not bad for either player. Well, it's already bad for Dark, so, you know, it's not good for him. But it's not really devastating for Dark. And it's not the biggest victory ever for Bunny either. Dark obviously has to replace it and will need a 5th base relatively soon as his main and natural start to get mined out. But he is close to max. He's taking an offensive engagement, however, which I don't think he's actually allowed to do. If he ever goes offensive, I do think he has to be lying to a certain degree, not fully engaging. He continues to fully engage, and I'm question marking it the entire time. I can see kind of what he's thinking, but the medevacs are healing through so much of this sustained damage. And even though the tanks were caught, some on siege, some not on siege, some corrosive biled, some not corrosive biled, unsieged tanks have some decent DPS. And Dark was running really low on the protective roaches that safeguard these Ravagers, and Lings, you know, can only do it for so long. But yeah, Dark, I think he had to take the chances where he could get him, of course, but that was not it. And now Bunny has a green light to move on, advance forward with the siege tanks. There's no more question marking, can that army take on mine? No, he did win that fight, and now he can continue to reinforce with even more siege units as well. And Dark, having only just replaced his 4th, is going to lose his 3rd, and obviously he can't play this type of game forever. He had just enough economy to get maxed out with a hive and a handful of infestors. He was not going to have a bank, and he was not going to have, you know, ultras or grid aspire or whatever else you could get. He could barely even afford vipers with this. And then to lose out on hatchery after hatchery and lose your army, that is the wombo combo that kills people. I lose both my means of getting an army and the army that I've already created. Dark might be able to collect enough pennies to actually max out again, but it won't be a particularly strong remax. Bunny, who I haven't mentioned in a while, is just grand on his side of the map. He's fabulous. 5 bases set up, planetaries protecting all of his main, I guess, run-by threats. Extra orbital's about to come down. 3-3 already started as Dark only just now about halfway in his 2-2. Dark has almost gotten maxed out again. Almost. Finally adding on a Viper as well. Hasn't really been able to afford too many Banelings despite getting that Baneling nest. And is still struggling to really get a foothold on this game. I mean, Bunny is in complete control. And with Ghost arriving as well, Dark will have a new threat to him. You know, it's, oh my god, the rock's being broken! Oh my god, Dark is a flipping genius. Oh my god, I didn't even see that coming. That was amazing, but it still wasn't enough. That still wasn't enough. Bunny, also not realizing what was going on, by the way, so I feel less guilty about that, but he did not move his army. Still had so much army besides that the supplies remain even. That was almost such a cool comeback. I mean, that would have been one of the first map terrain based comebacks in StarCraft 2 since I don't even know, man. What was that map that had like 4 players and rocks guarding your natural back in 2010? That one. Since that map existed. But it's not a comeback. It was excellent. It was so cool. Bunny does kind of respect it too. He pulls back a little bit. But it still wasn't enough to really bring back Dark in this game. He is on the road to recovery. Certainly a better shot at it than any other Zerg in this position, but another base under attack, one that he, I guess, arguably doesn't need, but he can't just let it go for free. Although, well, maybe he has to. But the new problem that I was trying to point out when the rocks got broken is that not that his spellcasters are being countered, which ghosts are going to get the EMPs, so that's always a factor. It's that his retreats is going to be much more punished. And that's a big problem for Dark, whose entire game plan kind of would revolve around retreating a lot. It involves a lot of posturing, buying time, and running away. Posture, buy time, run away. Until you finally have this really fantastic engagement. But that's what the Ravagers are good at. And if you are running away and getting sniped by a dozen ghosts, it's not very good for you anymore. So new problem is still here. And Dark still not with a whole lot of creep spread either. He has many problems to tackle. He's going to try and catch Bunny while some of his army is still unloaded. Some of the spellcasters coming in to help out, but still a lot of bio left over for the Terran player. And the drop on the backside was kind of funny. I don't know what it was trying to do, but it picks up again. And Bunny is still going to hold on to this position. So Dark tries an unsuccessful break at the end of the day. It wasn't really the worst one ever, but it does his economy allow for it. He has 2 bases full on mining, 3 bases full on mining. It's not too bad there, not too shabby. Managed to fit in his upgrades. Ultraless Cavern is on the way. I don't think he actually wants to go into Ultras. Where the hell did that ghost come from? Notice there's no Overseers and tried to snipe down a unit? Okay. Oh, another one! I can't even spot him, Jesus. Alright, now the Overseers are here. Bunny, who is still fabulous, by the way. Planetary on the left, new base to the left, new base to the far right. That's already a planetary. Apparently that had to deal with a run-by that I didn't even notice. And it dealt with it, so good job, planetary. Now this run-by has a little bit more pepper. These are would-be cracklings. Yes, they got +3 attack and adrenal glands. But the army reinforcements, just enough to take care of it. Only 10 SCVs go down. Bunny's still holding on a little bit to the control of the left side of the map. It's not really controlled. This isn't really all that much army. But Dark doesn't have scans. Terran Imba, am I right, guys? He doesn't have scans. He doesn't know what he's running into. He is going to try and bust this, and he'll probably be kind of shocked or happy, pleased, I don't know, about, like, it only being 2 Liberators. 2 tanks as well. Some Banelings getting destroyed unnecessarily. But overall, like I was saying, Bunny didn't have a lot holding on to that. Bunny still does have a lot, though. Make no mistake, Dark can only go forward so much. 11 more SCVs went down? I don't know. I don't really think Bunny cares about losing SCVs, so I'm just going to ignore that whenever that happens. Call me when something more important happens, like a Nidus Worm in the main base killing production, which Dark would love to have, wouldn't he? But I don't see any Nidus Worm, so nope. Not going to happen. 2 medevacs are just leading the charge. Bunny is once again trying to siege hop forward to take down this base, start the domino effect, right? You lose this base, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world for the Zerg player, but then suddenly the tanks are right here and they're bombarding your 4th base, and it's not a good feeling. Especially as Bunny continues to take control of the map. Bunny, almost looking at the Zerg player in this position, has so much of the map covered with bases and center towers, where Dark hasn't even had the time to really creep spread, even on the places where he is allowed to. Like, this right side hasn't been harassed super hard, but there's barely any creep spread. Ling run-by is going to try and do that damage, but again, it's like SCVs don't even matter to this guy. He's got to find a bunch of reinforcements, he's got to distract Bunny, and then perhaps the run-bys will be worth it. One command center does get taken down, but look at this, Bunny actually engaging to that 3rd base, 4th base. Drones having to be pulled away from that base actually are going to be goners on the 5th. I don't know what it is at this point, but you get what I'm saying. Now this base is also under attack. Bunny just gunning as soon as he realized that Dark was committing a very large number of units to the counterattack or run-by, which is now turning into a pseudo base trade. He ran on to creep, which is not as smart as it might seem in this particular game. In this game, it works out because Dark has been so Baneling light and probably was not expecting Bunny to do this, that Bunny did not get punished for rushing. So often, it is beneficial to the Zerg player to force the Terran to rush. Because the Terran goes, oh shit, I gotta do something, runs on a creep, runs face first into Fungals and Banelings. But that didn't happen this time around. Bunny did kind of go, oh shit, I should do something about this, I should get something done. And he did, and he was not punished for it. So he does lose access to 3 planetaries, this one, and that one. Has to give up his 3rd orbital for a little while, but he still has this base to the left as well as this one, which is an orbital. He's going to have orbitals to replace the bases that he lost, and he also killed 3 bases of his opponent, so it was tit for tat. It was quite even, in fact. But who has the better army at the end of the day? Bunny probably does. 20 army supply above. Plenty of ghosts about to be fungled. Oh, the fungal! Dark is so good at bringing these games back, but is that going to be enough? The infestors might have done their job against the ghosts, but the tanks and marines still up and running. 1 tank still survives. Some ghost still survives. The overseers had been killed, and Bunny is coming out ahead in the army supply, still doubling that of his opponent. All it takes are these remaining units to actually snowball and win the game. Yes, Bunny's army supply is a lot of medevacs, but if he scans ahead and sees no Banelings and no Ravagers and a couple of infestors, there you go, EMP, he knows that he can still stay here. He can find himself a little bit of a nook to hide in, which is what he's been doing. He finds a base with a bunch of drones to kill, and Dark decides, I can't take this on, which is absolutely correct about that. He needs a lot more Banelings to take on this ball of bio that's left over. So he goes for a run-by, but Bunny had so much consistent economy. He had a bit of a bank. His supply is already almost double that of Dark, and Bunny will still win the overall series. But damn if Dark didn't come up with 2 amazing potential comeback opportunities. The rocks being broken in the middle of the map and that fungal on like 12 ghosts was amazing. And it wasn't enough because he was so far behind from earlier. I mean, Dark is so good at this game. He's the only one I think who could have made it this close. But Bunny, playing some of the best TVZ that we've seen from him, nails it, knocks it out of the park. 2-1, advances to the round of 4. And for Bunny, it's really quite a potential Cinderella story almost. I mean, it's a magical story if he ended up winning. Because Bunny, as we heard in his Atlanta run, has never won a championship. And it's the one thing he wants to do before he retires. But he only has so many opportunities to do it. So if he does get to the finals of the GSL, I guarantee tears will be shed, no matter what. I don't know when the rock thing happened. Does anyone remember the time? Approximate time? You can share clips, by the way. They don't need permission. Around here, looks like. 4:20, thanks, man. I totally forgot this was even a thing. Kinda wanna watch Dark. Okay, so he's gonna break down these rocks, just give him an opportunity. Oh, and then he pretty much immediately realizes he has an opportunity there. I thought he was gonna realize it after the fact, but he's like, nope, Crucibiles. He didn't even have that much vision. He had no idea how much he was gonna kill. The fade away of StarCraft. Oh! That was 23 supply. Which, I mean, isn't that bad, really, but still, that's kind of cool. Just, boom, suddenly. 23 supply gone. It's too bad it didn't bring the game back. Hey, GG. Elimination match time. Best of 3 to determine who still has a chance at making it to the round of 4 of the GSL. In the top right, we have Solar. And in the bottom left, it is Byun. Both of them playing yet another TVZ. We do still have the possibility of a ZVZ Decider match. Decider's like with a Z. As Dark awaits the winner of this. Having lost the games to Bunny. Very, very hard fought, very close series between those two in the winner's match. If Byun ends up winning here and has to face Dark, I do favor Dark there. Especially because it'd be a rematch, and Byun did not do super well against Dark. I'm trying to remember if I remembered that correctly. Pretty sure I did. But like I was saying during the match previously, I do think that Byun will be more comfortable against Solar than Dark. Dark is a very scary player to go up against, and he plays, I mean, for the grand total of Zerg players out there, most of them play Ling Baneling, right? A couple of Roach games thrown in. So the fact that Dark is the opposite, where it's maybe most of his games are Roaches, already puts him as a very different Zerg player. Then add on top his aggressive nature and his ability to come back, and it's pretty scary. Solar is a scary Zerg in his own right, but it's just a different type of scary. It's just the type of scary that, you know, he's a top-tier Zerg player. But when your opponent's also a top-tier Terran player, I don't think it's as bad. I have a cat blocking my view, just so you guys know. I'm going off of the production tab currently. 2 racks, of course, for Byun at the front versus Solar, who not only went pool first, but also got some gas there. Roachwarn coming down. He is going to try and hard counter Byun, but get this, guys, this is not a hard counter at all. Now, it could be, I guess, if the Terran player does not control it correctly. But I guess that wouldn't be a hard counter then. It's like a soft counter. There are very few hard counters in StarCraft 2. But the soft counter to this could be an unscouted Roachwarn. However, key point, it has to be unscouted. So already, that's not the move, cat, move. Already, we have Byun getting, son of a... Oh, you're putting your butt on the keyboard, you... you butt. Okay, so the vision of Byun still does not see the Roachwarn of the second gas. So that's a bit problematic, but if he does see the second gas, well then you already know. So there you have it. And then if the Reapers scout this, which Byun should always be on guard, against the potential of this opener. They buy so much time. They throw grenades all day long, and that buys time for a bunker and a marauder. And you can see that Byun is actually so confident and so practiced against this that he is building a forward bunker. Now, a backwards bunker over here would probably guarantee your life, but it would force you to lose your add-ons and force you to have to lift your barracks. So it's a little riskier as far as literally living, but it is actually kind of necessary to do this, to continue on in any decent shape. Solar is not just doing a roach attack, though. He is also adding on these lings. This is a full-on committal. Byun has had to deal with this before, and he did deal with it. This is why I'm so confident in this call. We've seen this before. Byun has defended this exact attack in the exact fashion that you're seeing here, and he won. He won from it. Grenades are still helpful as well, by the way. Some SCVs were pulled, half of them go down, but half of them are still getting that repair, and you just need to repair until you can live. And so right here is when Byun can still live. 6 SCVs go down, 4 Marauders in play, 3 Reapers, make that 2 with the grenades to help out. A couple more SCVs pulled just in cases, but actually, because it is such an early all-in, Soul doesn't really have the most dependable reinforcements. Larva finally popped, Lings are finally made, Lings are finally on the side of the map, but already a handful more units are in action for Byun as well. And the SCVs are really just that solid defense. You know it's totally all in. Byun's gonna win the game if he doesn't die right here, right now. And with the increasing number of bio units, I still have the utmost confidence that Byun is choosing correctly. He's gonna lose a tech lab. That's the cheapest and fastest add-on that you can produce. Not really enough for Solar to get that, you know. I guess it would stop Marauder production is what he's thinking. But it's still 3 Marines at a time. Byun, despite losing the SCVs, is still ahead by 2 workers, plus he has a natural command center. Not yet an orbital, but very much worth not getting it yet. Put all of your money into the production of the barracks. Combat Shields is a faster upgrade, and looks to be getting that from the extra 2 barracks he made up on that high ground. I didn't even notice that, to be honest. But the Combat Shields being such a fast upgrade, and probably the better upgrade as far as a non-medevac bio build, makes a lot of sense. He's up against sustained damage. No banelings involved. So, stimming, you know, probably still wins him the game, but endangers him to a certain degree as well. Combat Shield just literally makes his army heftier, tankier. Solar's built up his last all-in army. But the army of Byun is a good size. Even if these Lings got the surround, which they will just barely, and the surround is terrifying when you also add in corrosive biles, it still will not be enough. Byun is going to handle this all in, as he has done before. And I actually think Solar made a mistake trying to do this. This is the second time that I've seen this exact all in not work against Byun. So it's almost a trap. Solar was the poor fly that landed on a nice juicy leaf petal and got snapped by the Venus flytrap. Well, Byun, quick, not super easy, but expected victory. And now we move on to game 2. In the top left, now down a game, we have Solar. In the bottom right, we have Byun, who is once again going for the forward 2 barracks. Seriously, though, I think I don't know who told him to do it. I don't know if he's done it before and it has worked, but I think Byun has been well guarded against that attack and all in for months at this point. Maybe when he was first experimenting with the Turax opener. Oh. He might have lost to it, but now he's really secured it. So Solar really shouldn't have done it. As weird as that sounds. Byun is sending his SCV out aggressively. He still is building 1 barracks at home, though. So he's going to turn this into an almost like TVP thing. 1 barracks at home, 1 barracks proxied. Build Marauders and Marines? Well, no, maybe he still builds Reapers. Just one's going to be hitting faster. Now, if Solar was going to all-in this game, this would have been really awkward. I think in this case, Solar's all-in would have worked, but it's incredibly unlikely that Solar will do that all-in again. And Byun is 100% playing off that fact that he's... By winning the first game, he's basically secured the second game as far as not having to deal with cheeses. I would say no Zerg with cheese again after that last game. Their last life in the GSL, and they got bopped. Maybe it's a big word, but I'm going to say bopped. You don't do it again. So Byun gets away with this, and it is just going to be Reapers. So with the one becoming, with the one of the Reapers coming over way faster, I guess what this means is that Solar could actually lose drones. When it's 3 Reapers coming across town, it's unlikely to kill drones against a professional Zerg player. But once proxied, I'd assume that it's going to get 1 or 2. We'll see what Solar's micro is like. 6lings are on the way because Solar is expecting 2 Reapers, but the trick is 1 Reaper is already here. Hello! Popping in from that bottom ridge. And already you got the micro battle. 1 drone saved. 1 drone saved. 1 Reaper killed. And hey, Byun is not winning this particular micro battle. Kind of completely negating the proxy racks, to be honest. He doesn't even get the creep turber. Well, this is a fantastic start for Solar. Well, of course, I had no idea this was on the way. And just through microing, wins against it. I mean, Byun's not super committed, but this does change up his build order. He no longer can add a reactor onto this barracks to give him the marine count that he usually would, or his tech lab, actually. So he's building a reactor back at home, I guess because the tech lab is faster and cheaper. So he figures it's worth to get this reactor going and then at the tech lab here, and that does make sense. But the point is, an extra barracks had to be created to do that at a fair timing. The only benefit from this opener that Byun has gotten is that he gets a barracks scout. is that a benefit? I don't know. It's a really heavy scout. It's not gonna die anytime soon. 2 Reapers at this point have been killed. 10 Lings, to be fair. But now as speed finishes up, we do have the Reapers completely killed. This one should die. Solar should go back into droning at this point. It'd be awesome if he could get a counterattack, but that's an additional reason Byun was going to quickly rebuild a second barracks. It is going to move over into a 2-1-1 by the looks of it, although Byun did use this map to go into a 2-base dedicated attack. He built, you know, tanks and medevacs, and that weird safety banshee. The barracks is seeing what you would expect from Solar, which so far is just drones, but like I said, it is a hefty scout. You know, it's sticking around for a while. It sees no more Lings being produced. Nothing rallied across the map, so presumably, like, eggs are building drones. The Terran wall has a hole. I don't think it does. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I mean, Byun should definitely test it if he's worried, but I don't think this is actually a wall.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the
Yeah, it's not. This is how his barracks would have been built if they were all both built at home. It would have been really awkward if there was a hole, though. Byun might have just died. Solar built a decent amount of Lings to chase down a single Reaper at the end of it, right? So that was a mistake from Solar. He was not going to find anything more than that last Reaper, which he didn't kill, by the way. I was wrong about that. And nothing else, because there was a wall. So he really should have, well, theoretically not built any additional Lings. Maybe he would have 5 more drones right now, which is certainly something. This is going into a 2-1-1, not that 2-base attack that he did versus Dark. So many TVZs to keep track of. And so, well, hold on. Nope, I should take it back. That's a 3rd Rax and a single engineering base. So this is going to be a 2-base dedicated attack. It is still different than what he did versus Dark because he didn't go for that odd Banshee. He's still attacking primarily, initially, with his 2 medevacs and marines, and then later on, we'll add in 2 tanks, I guess. Even adding a reactor. So he's delaying his medevac production to expedite his marine production. And this is also kind of keeping a cover, by the way. Solar doesn't know if there's a 3rd CC behind this. You know, if there was a tank appearing, he might be a little more inclined to believe it's a two-base attack, but with only the Marines, it's ambiguous. So he still doesn't know. He's got no way of knowing either. His lair's gonna finish, and he could theoretically send an overseer in, but usually not something that they're too quick about doing. It is an investment. Third CC is on the way, but there is definitely emphasis on the production of units first and foremost. Biggest sign of a two-base committal is probably just the second engineering bay not being around. So your upgrades aren't going to look that pretty. But neither are Solar's, to be honest. Solar has had to read so many parts of this game and had to balance accordingly that he, has not done it perfectly. Going back to the initial Lings built to take care of a single Reaper. So he probably should be a little more ahead on drones than he is. Now, though, he needs to really be wary of a two-base attack, so he can't be droning now. He has to be building army right now. Especially as his Baneling speed is not done, nor his Carapace upgrade. Byun's got +1 attack, clearing up the creep spread, opening up the opportunity for his tanks to get sieged up in that super abusive location. Every single creep tumor was taken down with that scan. Solar has set up a bit of a surround, which is excellent, but with slow Banelings, it won't be the best surround ever. More creep tumors being taken care of. Solar, he wants to gun it. He wants to go for it, but without the Baneling speed, it's just not going to be as good as it can be. He tries to go for a run-by, but Byun is actually locked up his natural nice and tight. Tank even sieges to ensure the defense. Byun can now focus entirely on the front lines, and that's when he showcases his Byun micro, isn't it? All the creep spread now dissipated. Solar is in a very vulnerable position, especially as his trap turned run-by turned trap gets found out. So Byun's always going to be wary of it, not going to be caught by surprise. Solar's really trying to do anything, if he can delay a third CC, that's better than nothing. He will see the third CC coming on over. He knows it's going to be a bit later. It's not an orbital. He knows that Byun is dedicated to two bases, but this now confirms that Solar isn't just having to live. All right, without a third CC, maybe Solar thinks, oh my god, just live, just live, just live. With a third CC, you gotta actually break out of this eventually. You gotta start thriving as the Zerg player. So, in order to thrive, you have to take down this, which is gonna be taken down. There's enough Zerg army that Byun is gonna have to get out of here, but it's going to be a trade. Oh, the Banelings are so close to connecting. There we go. Byun sticking around a little too long. I don't think he actually noticed some of the Banelings in the mix of Lings, but as I was saying, at the end of the day, it's still a trade. Solar invested a lot into that army, and it wasn't a super clean cleanup. And Byun is already back on the action. Double drop to the left, still with triple medevacs to the right. And his third CC now perfectly safe, because Solar brought back that would-be run-by. Couple of Byun snipes and the Banelings, of course. Gotta show off a little bit. And Byun is now set up on 3 bases. He should be getting into double engineering bay. Yes, he does have it. Has not gotten around to starting it up yet. But again, Solar's upgrades aren't exactly great either. A couple of drones going down. Just a couple so far. Mostly trying to get that big distraction. Solar running all over the place. If he starts losing queens, then the drops could be getting even worse. But so far, so good. Solar keeping his head above water. Plus 5 queens overall. It's not too shabby. Has seemingly deflected the drops. Byun's run out of steam on those. But I'm still a little bit worried about the lack of creep spread, only barely covering some of the most important places on the map. Still worried about Solar's, I guess, longevity here. Is that the word I'm looking for? His chances of survival as the game goes on longer. It's an infestation pit on the way, which is great as far as late game TVZ, but the upgrades still aren't very convincing. I don't know if the Hydras are really going to be all that helpful. Right here, right now. The DPS they're adding in, sometimes not really all that helpful. So mostly if the Ling Banelings get those connections. Adding in more Hydras though, they'll have some consistent DPS the higher the number grows, and the chance to turn into lurkers, perhaps in this game. Drop goes back into the main, Solar quick to respond, but losing access to the would-be 5th base, just having to give that one up. Quick cancel on that. And Byun is moving on to a 4th base. He does have his 2-2 about halfway done. As Solar starts his +2 melee. He'll have a bit of an upgrade lead, actually, for about 30 or 40 seconds. Longevity. Really? That doesn't... None of this sounds right, but I'll take your word for it. Anyways, big attack, but that's actually not the best one from Solar. The Banelings were off creep and very visible to the Marines. Right? Byun was not shocked by the Baneling movements. He actually took advantage of the Baneling movement. Now is forced to disengage, and once again, staying a little bit too long on the ground before picking up, but Solar gave away a lot to once again clear out the attack. None of this is being made easy for poor Solar, who really needs a good fight, not just an even fight, to feel secure in this game. He still is only keeping his head above water, I would say. Still not swimming along here. Not going to the Olympics anytime soon. Lurker Den's on the way. Hive will finish up, give access to some Vipers, which would be very helpful against the growing tank counts. I say growing as if there's 2 factories. It's only 1 factory. Byun is going into a mostly mass bio style, which he has certainly preferred the last few months. The 2 tanks aren't that impressive, but the number of Marines outside of it abusing the lack of creep that Solar has, because Solar's been harassed so much. That's what's scary. Lurkers would be amazing against this, especially as another tank actually gets taken down. This one I thought was going to get taken down, but no, Solar ends up retreating, takes the shot from the tank, and now also losing his 5th base. He does need this. He needs a 5th base soon. He's got a run by coming in, but Byun's SimCity and his reinforcements working together to take care of it, question mark? Yeah, and his upgrades kicking in as well. So just barely taking care of it. 4th base turning into a planetary. That's an orbital! Byun's being a cheeky, greedy Terran player. Getting a 4th base as an orbital. That's what he does. That is what he does when he goes for the mass bio style. Big old drop into the main base, finally clearing out that Spore Crawler. Looking to do more damage. Banelings roll in, however, and that's going to force the pick up with the Hydras. Maybe they can get a bit of a punish. Nope, need those Vipers to pop out and get those abducts. Byun goes into the main base, escapes, moves into the 3rd base with tanks as well. Thank you very much. The tanks are kind of left unguarded, so that was a bit of a... That was actually not the best, to be honest. That looked like it was about to be a 1-2 punch, and then it just flopped. It was flippity-floppity. Byun guy just be like, don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. Runs all the way back home. Still has yet to add on the Marauders, and again, his tank count is not particularly impressive. Solar might find some real, much-needed momentum right here, right now. Finally has the room to get a 5th base up, some creep spread out, and engage onto Byun's side of the map, which, if he does wisely, is a good thing. But this is, you know, something that he did incorrectly versus Bunny and paid the price for it. Lings can take a tank down and 5 SCVs, not exactly worth all of those Lings. And the 4th base, despite being an orbital, remains intact. Now getting saturated. Solar needs to use the time bot here to get this 5th base saturated. Okay, check. Get the Hive up with Vipers. Check. And get some of these Lurkers going. Check. He doesn't have the upgrades for the Lurkers quite yet, but he is going on to the range ASAP. So Solar's gonna change the pacing of this game with Lurkers. Byun is really all about that action, really about throwing bodies over to Solar's side of the map, almost Zerg-like. And Lurkers are going to draw that line in the sand so that every time Byun says, well, maybe enough Marines will cause this guy to fall over, Lurkers will just stand their ground. Marines do not beat Lurkers, even if you're really cool and do the Boxer Marine micro. I'm sorry, it won't make up for it. So Solar has a real chance at extending this game now. The best chance so far in this 15-minute game. Still dealing with all the harassment, still dealing with a lack of creep spread, making this a, again, uncomfortable game for Solar. He doesn't have those would-be map hacks that you would so desire as a Zerg player. So, for instance, this attack comes in, last-second notice, just has to pull the drones away to try and salvage the situation. That is a lot of Marines. I may say that's a lot. I might say that's a buttload. 15 Marines at a time. He built reactors on his additional barracks, not tech labs like I was expecting. He is wings of liberating it up, man. Mass Marine tank until you die. If it doesn't work, it's because Zerg is imbalanced. That's a thing. I guess this is a thing that Byun is now showing us. Will it work against someone who is making Lurkers? The one thing I can guarantee is that a lot of Byun's army is replaceable. Marines are pretty freaking cheap, And while they might not be the most efficient against lurkers, if you got enough of them, I guess they will get the surrounds. The concave's working out for Byun as Solar is trying to engage in different locations, doesn't have enough lurkers to put every which way, barely saves his third hatchery, but will not save his fourth. His fifth is already taken down, and the main base was also under fire. He had to deal with everything at once and left his lurkers unguarded. And because their numbers weren't particularly high, there's a total of 6 lurkers. They couldn't protect each other either. 6 lurkers all together, I do not think get broken from Mass Marine. Well, okay, if the sickest concave happens, but it's really difficult. But you take 2 at a time, that's a lot easier. And Byun is going to win by, yeah, bringing in the spirit of Bomber, you know? Taking some inspiration from Zerg. And just making cheap, cost-efficient units and hoping that they overwhelm your opponent eventually. Apparently Solar lost his Baneling Nest, guys. That's, you know, kind of an important structure against Mass Marine. What really boggles my mind is that this is all of 1 factory. I would not even really be memeing on it if it was 2 factory Marine or even 3 factory Marine, right? Then I'd say, like, this is cool. This is actually Bomber Wings of Liberty shit. 1 factory, as many Marines as you can get. But Solar's gonna die to it. Solar he was so close to stabilizing. He was this close to stabilizing. If he had more lurkers or an appropriate number of banelings protecting these lurkers down here, he might still have, well, certainly at least 4 bases. And that's, you know, enough to live. But instead he got overwhelmed. Now gonna try and go for a run by. I do feel like if Solar gets 7 lurkers and gets them on the other side of the map, Byun could be in a lot of trouble. But Byun not having to deal with lurkers with this particular attack, just banelings off of creep, so he just kept pulling back into the eventual tank fire. Command center could always be lifted, so Solar didn't bother gunning for it, so it remains intact. Ditto on the right side orbital, and Byun defends a very large committed run by and keeps his place on Solar's side of the map. You would have at least hoped that Byun would pull all the way back, man. And he didn't do that. Well, this medevac is about to be F2'd into Hydras. Something finally going Solar's way. But Solar's fresh mining base is about to get bopped. This base is a goner. And this base doesn't, I don't have a lot of hope for it. Viper also just got gunned down right there. Finally, 1 Marauder entered into the field of play. Thank God that died. We don't need freaking Marauders here. Jesus, what do you think this is? 2023? Get the fuck out of here. Seriously, though, he made like 1 accidental Marauder. And that's it. That is literally it. Byun actually had only an even supply right now, so as much as the momentum certainly feels in favor of Byun, I guess he wasn't winning, but now I say he certainly is. The Viper got sniped, the Banelings roll in off of creep, always inefficient there, and the Hydras are left all alone, so this will be the winning moment for Byun, and he will win 2-0 against Solar to have another shot at taking down Dark in the decider match. Can we check what killed the 3rd hatch? Oh, the one that was really, really low. I'm looking. It died a long time ago, apparently. Oh, here we go. Just a handful of Marines. I just saw it die. How did I mistime this so much? There it is. Yeah, literally Marines rushed through the middle of the map and killed it. Lol. Oh, nope, that was what injured it. Okay, what killed it then? Oh, the Viper killed it! Oh, Solar. You silly boy. I don't think having that 3rd base intact would have saved him, but still. He must have had that shift queued from earlier before the Marines gunned it. That's funny. Emotional damage. Alright, GG. The cider match is here, and it is a rematch from the preliminary match of GSL RO8 Group B. In the bottom right of Gresvan. 5th time we've seen this. It is Dark. In the top left, we have Byun. Doing the thing. Doing the thing. He loves the thing. Free windshielding for the mic. Exactly. It's just a dead cat. That's what they call it, isn't it? It's a really weird word. If you guys didn't know, if you never looked into audio, the big fuzzy thing on cameras and mics and stuff, I think it's called a dead cat. Anyhow. So this is a rematch. Dark looked better than Byun in the first time they played against each other today. Technically it is today. I'm not wrong when I say that. So I would expect him to win the decider match. But there is such thing as a GSL group style curse. Thank you, Verbox, for the Prime sub. Where it's totally not backed up by data, but who cares about data anyways? 80% of statistics are made up anyways. That if you win your first match, your preliminary match against someone, you lose the decider match if you have the misfortune of facing them again. So, pretty sure someone proved it was not statistically correct. Someone actually bothered to do that. And we just all ignored it. Same with the Artosis curse. Artosis, I think, has a positive record of guessing who's going to win games. But we don't care. We just call it the Artosis curse. That's what we do. So Dark has to be wary about that, man. He's got to be scared. I think we're all kind of cheering for Dark, though. Because if Byun were to win this... I mean, Byun is hard to cheer against, to be fair. Byun's a very cool guy. But if Byun wins this, that means we're back to GOM TVT days, guys. GOM might as well just come back and force us to use the GOM TV player. If Byun wins this, it'll be 4 Terrans in the round of 4. I personally would love to have to download a scamware application and watch at 360p. Let's end Korean StarCraft 2 like we started Korean StarCraft 2. Who else is with me? I'm all for it. I'm gonna actually purposefully downgrade the quality of the round of 4 videos if it's a TVT. Just kidding, kind of. But Byun, he is hard to cheer against. I think preferably we'd have a TVZ in the semifinals. But you know, it's coming down to this, man. It's coming down to this decider match. Byun still has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, to be fair. While his 2 attempts at the forward 2 racks, follow-up XYZ, so on and so forth, did not work in the first series against Dark, he does have A, B, C, D options as well. So Dark still has to be more worried about the follow-up. I don't think Dark's going to make the mistake of all-inning this, by the way. I think Dark was one of the first guys to try and gotcha Byun, and Byun defended. So I don't think Dark's going to actually go all-in early on versus Byun at any time. Please don't tell me Byun gets this hatchery. Oh my god, it's going to be a complete hatchery. Oh my god, he's going to get this? Is he going to get the hatchery? Holy shit, 40-30? No, he's not going to get the hatchery. That would have been absurd. But look how absurdly low this hatchery is. Oh my god. If this was a ladder game, I would absolutely just throw Marines at it and hope I got it. Like, damn the rest of the game. But Byun's not gonna do that. He's gonna wait patiently for something a little more solid to run across the map with. He is once again going up to the 3 barracks factory in Starport. He is going to go into... So is this a Dark specific thing? He's gonna add on a Banshee again. I had my critiques of this option the first time they played, where I realized, wait, why get a Banshee, a safety Banshee, if you're gonna 2-base attack anyways? I do like this. I much prefer the Raven. The Banshee just didn't make much sense to me, right? Because yeah, Dark is a Roach player and he'll all-in you, so safety Banshees are a thing, but only if you're being greedy. So if you're 3CCing, you get a safety Banshee against Dark. Probably a good idea. But you're 2-basing anyways. You're not supposed to lose to Dark's, you know, mid-game all-in. Early-ish mid-game all-in. But the Raven could actually help the main engagement, and I'm more so looking forward to Byun's main attack, where he is going to add the Marines with 1 tank. Because I did also wonder if he would have been able to get 2 tanks if he didn't go for a tech lab. But I'm not sure how the resources quite finagle themselves, you know? I don't do this build, so I don't know what actually happens. I do know that he's currently very limited on the amount of resources that he has, so I guess a second tank is out of the realms of possibility. The Raven will help clear up creep spray, but it also can do, I feel like, actually more harassment than a uncloaked Banshee. They're probably on a similar scale of damage potential, but the Raven is more helpful for the direct fight. Unfortunately, the Raven auto turret was nerfed many, many moons ago because of TVZ. Its cast range was reduced from 3, I think, to 1. So it used to guarantee get auto turret damage done against queens, but now they don't. Anyways, Byun kind of threatened it. He like showed it and then said, you know what, just kidding, not gonna bother. An anti-armor missile on queens would be feisty, or even just interference matrix. Ravens do something, auto turrets it is, that's gonna distract a lot of the target fire. If Dark doesn't target fire, rather, the auto turrets tank all of that. They are high on the threats, and I think that affected some of this battle, but in general, Dark did not have enough units, and he is getting overwhelmed. In the blink of an eye, Dark is gonna go down in game 1. No doubt about it, Dark has lost way too much. Completely different from the first time they played, that's for sure. And even though there's only one medevac healing, I mean, he's just going to continue microing. Byun also added on, I believe, a faster third CC, so he had more intentions of macroing out of this anyways, and a double engineering base setup as well. Dark is now... He dies versus a 2-base all-in or a 3 racks Byun. Damn it. I keep saying racks. I can't say command centers. 3 command center Byun. He dies versus both of those. Because Dark took way much damage. Way too much damage in that third base. Not just the third base, but the queens and the drones and the lings. Everything. Dark is the type to make comebacks happen. But he's got to have a certain place in the game before I really feel comfortable about saying he's the comeback guy. You know, it's like Maru. Maru probably doesn't win a TVT if he's set down at 2 bases. But if you give him 3 bases, he'll probably still win an unfavorable TVT. Dark, you give him 3 bases, roaches, and an infestation pit, he might be able to make this work. But a effectively 2-base Dark, because he doesn't have any drones on his third. With Ling Baneling, nah, forget about it. Slow Banelings as well. Dark sets up one of the best possible engagements with the surround. So I guess we should give a little golf clap to him. Dark is not one to easily give up, as you can see. But he is pretty screwed. Only now replacing the drones that he lost earlier, and not even able to replace them fast enough. 5 or 6 drones at a time. Will take 2 or 3 cycles before he matches Byun's. 4 or 5 cycles before he's really at a good place for a Zerg player coming up on 9 minutes. Yeah, just a casual 5 larva cycles of drones. No big deal. Dark's got this. He's fine. He doesn't even have the queens to get all of his injects, so it's even worse than that. Plus, he still has to make lings to, you know, survive in the game. Byun's third CC now saturated, tanks defensively set up. Byun might be kind of second-guessing the ease of this victory just because he is facing Dark, you know, kind of side-eyeing like, well, I'm pretty sure you're dead, but maybe you're not. So he's not eager to throw away the game. He is getting his feet set, making sure he can't be bowled over because he's not paying attention. He's being a little too loosey-goosey. Simple drop to the right, mostly a drop type of army to the center, and eventually, I guess Byun will be maxed out before he pushes again, just to really make sure he doesn't throw away the game. And since Dark is the type of Zerg player to go for army instead of necessary— oh, this is disastrous. Please stop. Please no. Please, will of God. Oh my God. All those limbs died. Since Dark is more of a Zerg player to build army rather than immediately try to replace drones, there are absolutely times where Dark makes a comeback happen because he's still building army. The Terran player assumes, aha, I killed 20 drones, and now the Zerg player is going to remake 20. So they're not making army, so let's go kill him right here, right now. And Dark will actually still be making army, kind of hoping you make that mistake. So I think that's probably a lot of Dark's comebacks over the last 5 years, is that mistake that Terrans make. But I would say in the last 2 years, I think Terran players have gotten really savvy to it. So they wait for a more secure push out like this, and Byun will in fact take game number 1. Just took a little while longer. GG. Now into the second game of the decider match. In the bottom left it is Byun, in the top right it is Dark. Byun sends out an SCV. But he's not a T-Raxer. Not a proxy T-Raxer anyways. Does what he do, you know? So this is a disturbing start for Dark, who really, I think, just looks better than Byun in the first series. There was very few points at which I was truly concerned for Dark. But then you go into the rematch, possibly feeling very confident because you did beat the guy 2-0 previously. You almost won your winners match GVZ as well, so it's not like your ZVT is problematic in some way. And then the first game, you make such a bad mistake that you just lose in the blink of an eye. I know that's a common complaint about StarCraft too. Look away and all your probes die to a Widow Mine, but honestly, that doesn't happen, I'd say, all that often. Or at the very least, what you could say is that there's a lot of little things that added up to one big thing, so it's not as one thing determines the match as much as it is just little tiny things eventually rolling into the big punch. But Dark really did not prepare well for the same attack that Byun did to him in the first game. The only difference was the Raven instead of the Banshee. And while the auto turrets do impact the battle, like I was trying to say, the threats of the auto turret draws the Lings to it and the Queenfire to it as well. Was that really the big difference that made Dark handle that so poorly? It could have been, honestly, because if auto turret draws the Ling threat, they don't surround the Marines like they were told to do. They go, oh, an auto turret, and then they attack the auto turret, and they surround the auto turret, and it's, you know, half a second of being bunched up that Marines love. They love it when Zerglings do that, not on them, but on something else. They'll slaughter the Lings, given the chance. So maybe it was the auto turrets, but it just looked like Dark was not as well prepared. So it was one moment to change the course of history. Not really, but Byun now with a much needed confidence boost against Dark, considering the way the first series went. I don't think Dark is actually a Zerg player to get destabilized because suddenly something didn't go the way that he wanted to. I think he's pretty strong mentally, but just doesn't feel as confident, perhaps as you once were walking into this, you know? Getting set up. Well, you don't even walk right now, actually. All of this is played online, so adjusting your chair. You're not as comfortable as you were. The players will be playing offline in not the Afrika studio, apparently, but rather a studio outside of Jamshil, which if you don't live in Korea, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But they will be playing live for the semis and the finals. So that's another thing that these guys are playing for. Not only the potential to win a GSL and get more money, so not as much as they used to, but more money, but also to play in front of a live crowd, which really is a much more fun experience for everyone involved in esports. As much as online production makes sense, and you can't blame them for the position they're currently in, offline stuff's just so much more fun. So Byun opened up with the 2 racks, we know that much. 3 Reapers, not quite killing the hatchery that time around. Still bothering Dark, of course. And then the follow-up from Byun is a 3rd and 4th barracks. So he is going to send his Marines across the map and hopefully bother Dark or straight up win if Dark is tilted, if Dark is underprepared twice in a row. Byun could still win with this. Reapers actually kill 2 drones, 4 Lings, and 4 creep tumors. That's a lot of energy. That's 2 transfuses gone now from the Queens, right? Or all the creep tumors. Dark scouting, rather limited, of course. as it typically is. It's not even going to check the natural for gases or anything like that. Which, you know, last game, I believe there was a fast third gas. So a gas scout could at least give some hint to Dark, and he's not even scouting it. A faster third gas would show more of a factory build. But then, even if you saw this, even if you saw no gas, it could be a 4-rax, or it could be a third command center, right? Well, you know, both of those things don't take a lot of gas. So it's, you can only do so much, I guess. And Dark, having not even a Ling on the front lines, is so late to responding. Nothing saw this coming. His Lings are popping out. A Spinecrawler is on the way. And Queens are bunched up, which is often the most important thing here. But there's the Stim right on top of the Queens. Not going to bother gunning down that Spinecrawler until it's actually a threat. The Queens are the threat right now, and they're a bit less on the transfuse thanks to the earlier Reaper harassment. All of the Queens go down. These Queens have no transfuses, and that Spinecrawler is one alone, sadly, Spinecrawler. It's like, oh, I wanted to help. Sorry about that. GG, Byun. Complete reversal of their first match. Complete reversal. Dark looked completely lost against Byun's builds. I have no idea what happened between the series, but Dark got bopped. And that means that good old GSL Gum TVT it is. Byun, Bunny, Cure, and Maru are your round 4 GSL contestants who you'll be able to see live at that place I was talking about and see who actually wins GSL. If you do want to support the players, then you should go to patreon.com/GSL. You can get the replays, you can get some player interviews, some player cards. I don't know what it means, but apparently it's a thing. And just generally support the Korean StarCraft scene. That is it. Thank you so much for watching. For the YouTube guys out there, thank you. Please like, follow, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And I will see you for more GSL whenever the replays come out. Bye.